Chapter 831. Extraterritorial Demon, how dare you blaspheme the divine territory of the great true God Ikisi. Die. The divine kingdom rose, accompanied by the boiling anger of true God Ikisi. It collided with the crystallized sword aura that Xing Hui had slashed down. The crystallized sword aura that was nearly 10,000 meters long shook slightly under the impact of the power of true God Ikisi's divine kingdom. The next moment, it shattered like glass that was hit by a giant hammer. There was only a slight crack on the surface of true God Ikisi's divine kingdom. The next moment, it was replenished and repaired by the endless divine power in the divine kingdom. Then, the door of the 20,000-kilometer divine kingdom suddenly opened. The divine power surged, and a handsome man who had condensed 1/5 of the divine power of the entire divine kingdom and was also 10,000 meters tall stepped out from the inside. The handsome man had a flawless appearance. He wore a noble and sacred golden robe and held a white jade scepter. The scepter was inlaid with a white star-like gem that exuded a terrifying energy wave. As soon as he appeared, he attacked in the direction of Xing Hui. Heretic who dares to blaspheme God, accept my judgment. The body of a true God. But that's right, this galaxy is too fragile after all. A divine kingdom with a diameter of 20,000 kilometers collided. Just the gravitational frenzy caused by the rapid movement is enough to completely destroy the balance of the ecosystem of the entire galaxy. Although the Jima civilization may have the ability to save the continuation of their civilization, it's estimated that many people will die in this cosmic disaster. For Ikisi, it's a huge loss of believers. Xing Hui soon understood why true God Ikisi did not use his divine kingdom but took the risk to summon his true body to fight with him. A crystallized sword aura. Am I being underestimated? Xing Hui looked at true God Ikisi in front of him. The next moment, he pinched his finger into a sword and shot it at him. The moment his finger sword was formed, the crystallized sword auras whizzed out from his divine true body that was 10,000 meters tall. The 48 Dian sword auras instantly filled the starry sky in front of him. True God Aixin, who originally thought that the other party was just a rank 18 life form, was about to show off his supreme divine power in front of all his believers. However, when he saw the crystallized sword aura shooting down with a whistling sound that could be said to be overwhelming, his expression changed drastically. Oh no! Rumble! The kingdom of God, which was responsible for protecting the capital star, rose up in an instant and tried to merge with the body of true God Aixin. Due to its fast speed and violent movements, under the effect of many gravitational waves, an indescribable disaster was instantly formed in the capital star system. Even the crust of the capital star was violently moving. There were countless earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, tsunamis, and other terrifying natural disasters. However, even so, he was still a little slow. The 48 crystallized sword auras were like a storm that tore the void apart and instantly attacked real God Ikisi's body. Although he managed to shatter 3 of the crystallized sword auras into pieces with one hit and even used his defensive divine weapon and defensive divine spell to wear down the other 6 sword auras that followed closely, the remaining sword auras were endless. In the blink of an eye, his real body was pierced into pieces. Only less than 1/10 of the energy returned to the Holy Kingdom. At the same time that he escaped into the Holy Kingdom, Xing Hui's remaining 39 sword auras were like giant laser cannons that cut through the starry sky. They shot into real God Ikisi's Holy Kingdom with a despair-inducing black trajectory. The power of the Holy Kingdom was naturally able to resist the attack of one crystallized sword aura and mobilize the power of the Holy Kingdom to shatter it. However, there were as many as 39 sword auras that shot down at the moment. Although the first dozen or so sword auras only exploded on the surface of the Holy Kingdom and formed circles of ripples, the subsequent dozen or so sword auras had completely torn apart the outer barrier of his Holy Kingdom. When the last dozen or so crystallized sword auras arrived, his Holy Kingdom could no longer put up a decent defense. He could only watch helplessly as a total of 12 crystallized sword auras whizzed into the interior of the Holy Kingdom. For a moment, it was as if meteors with a diameter of 10 kilometers and a density of an unknown degree had crashed into a planet at sublight speed. Although the firmness of the kingdom of Extet was many times higher than that of an ordinary star, under the attack of the 12 crystallized sword auras, 12 huge wounds were plowed out from the ground. Cracks with a diameter of hundreds of kilometers were crisscrossed all over the interior of the kingdom of Extet. Countless saints who were originally brought into the kingdom of Extet were annihilated in this disaster. One of the crystallized sword auras even shattered many of the laws that constituted the kingdom of Extet, causing a special existence that resembled a black hole to be formed. It constantly swallowed many substances in all directions, turning them into nothingness and annihilation. This was not the end. Although the 49 Dian sword auras had not received the support of the power of great ways and their power was not at its peak, with the power of the sword formation, every sword aura had the ability to multiply and multiply endlessly. When the sword auras shot into real God Ikisi's holy kingdom and wreaked havoc, more sword auras that were originally destroyed by real God Ikisi actually condensed again and joined the bombardment against real God Ikisi. They directly aimed at the holy kingdom and bombarded it indiscriminately. No. Who are you? What exactly do you want? If you want this galaxy, I can give it to you. I'll lead everyone in our god system out of this galaxy. What I need is the credit of killing a real god. If you really plan to give it to me, then surrender. There was a flash of anger in real God Ikisi's eyes. However, there was more fear that came from the bottom of his heart. Looking at the great power and the endless number of crystallized sword auras, real God Ikisi roared and the huge holy kingdom collapsed. A part of it was like a meteor that crashed into Tsinghui fiercely, while the other part was about to dash into the depths of the starry sky. You won't be able to escape, Tsinghui said. However, his words didn't last for long before his expression changed slightly. Space curvature drive. This was a method of driving a spaceship to fly at faster than light speed by modifying spacetime. However, as there was an upper limit to the speed of this method, it was difficult to rely on it to travel in the galaxy. When a technological civilization reached level 18, it would gradually be replaced by the universe tide drive method. Although it was a flying method that was more backward compared to the universe tide drive method, but Tsinghui did not know how to do it. He did not know how to make his divine real body fly at faster than light speed using the space curvature drive method. He had yet to master such a method that belonged to the Master of Time's cultivation system. As for his level 17 spaceship, it was simply a fool's operation. It only knew basic functions such as setting up a target. It was like a person who knew how to use a pressure cooker to cook, but once he lost the pressure cooker and had to cook the rice in his own way, he would be at a loss. Real God Ikisi has actually studied the cultivation method of the Master of Time's lineage to such an extent. I definitely can't let him fly at faster than light speed. I remember that the space curvature drive method has a great requirement on the external force field environment. Tsinghui's gaze turned and landed on the fixed star in the capital galaxy. The next moment, as he commanded the Dian sword aura to shatter the holy kingdom that real God Ikisi had used to block him, he waved his right hand abruptly. The scarlet abyss sword was like a stream of light that shattered the void. It instantly pierced through the void and shot toward the fixed star in the capital galaxy that was less than 200 million kilometers away from him. Shatter that star. Buzz buzz. The manifested scarlet abyss did not need Tsinghui to explain too much. As a spiritual life form, it had a unique advantage in such an environment. It quickly accelerated itself to the state of sublight speed. Then, a sword light that pierced through the starry sky flashed. The fixed star, which was slightly larger than the sun, quickly began to collapse inward. A lot of the fixed star's gas smashed toward the core at close to the speed of light under the effect of gravity, producing a terrifying rebound effect. The electrons and protons in the core squeezed the neutrinos, and the neutrinos were absorbed when they passed through the fixed star's gas, producing a huge amount of energy. It exploded with a loud bang, releasing endless light and rays that stirred up the entire galaxy into chaos. Space curvature drive required the space behind him to be flattened, and then with the help of the pulling force of the space in front of him to accelerate, he would enter a state of faster than light speed. The space where real god Aikisi was at now was affected by the gravitational chaos caused by the explosion of the fixed star. How could he keep the space flat? His flight that was almost completed at the speed of light came to an abrupt end. No. It ends here. Swoosh. 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 Just as real god Aikisi's escape was interrupted, Tsing Hui's 49 Dian sword aura, which had shattered the small world that real god Aikisi had used to block him, once again tore through the void and caught up with real god Aikisi at close to the speed of light, slashing into his world once again. Real god Aikisi, who had already been split into many pieces, could no longer withstand the slashing of the sword aura. His entire world seemed to have been hit by dozens of meteorites that were as hard as diamonds at close to the speed of light. Countless shock waves spread out from the world, annihilating the lives in his world. At the same time, it also hit the barrier of the world fiercely, shattering the barrier of the world. Not long after, the broken Holy Kingdom was about to collapse. Ah, if you kill me, the bloodline of the Master of Chaos won't be able to occupy this galaxy. I have already integrated the information about you into the electromagnetic waves of the cosmic tide and sent it to the surrounding galaxies. In less than a few decades, this information will be captured by the powerful technological civilization in the surrounding galaxies. Now, I will use the secret cultivation method of the bloodline of the Master of Time to transform into a black hole and imprison you. In order to pursue the legendary Eternal Realm, the Master of Time has a simulated rule of time. Gravity and time correspond to each other. Under the terrifying gravitational effect of the black hole, even if I only imprison you for a day, or even for 2 hours, dozens of years may have passed outside. When you break free from my black hole transformation, it will be the day you perish under the attack of the powerful technological civilization in the foreign galaxy. As soon as real god Aikisi finished speaking, the Holy Kingdom suddenly erupted. A black hole that contained infinite gravitational force was formed in an instant. The endless brilliance that was emitted from the supernova that had exploded was immediately captured by the black hole, causing the entire black hole to look like a light vortex that was formed by intense light, swallowing everything. Not good. Tsing Hui's expression changed drastically. He was not afraid of the interception of the technological civilization. There were no particularly powerful technological civilizations in the dozens of galaxies around the Milky Way as the center. Even if those technological civilizations did come, at best, they would only annoy him a little. What he was really worried about was that in order to pursue the Eternal Realm, the Master of Time had simulated the incomplete rule of time in his own territory. If he was really trapped in the black hole, only God knew how much time would have passed in the outside world. Chapter 832. Open up. The power in Tsing Hui's divine real body surged as he continuously resisted the gravitational force of the black hole formed by real god Aikisi's fall of Holy Kingdom. He tried to escape from the gravitational force. However, real god Aikisi was a powerful real god whose fighting power was not inferior to top almighties like Rosy Cloud's King and Purple Jade King. How could he escape from the black hole formed by the collapse of his own Holy Kingdom so easily? Under the intense struggle, Tsing Hui could not struggle out of the black hole other than keeping himself from falling into the black hole. It seemed that he could only rely on the weakening of the gravitational force after the black hole engulfed matter from the outside world to have the hope of escaping. Go! Tsing Hui, whose divine real body was surging, suddenly pressed down. Rays of Dian sword aura whizzed out and slashed into the depths of the black hole. However, without exception, they were quickly engulfed by the power of the black hole. As the engulfing power interfered with the formation of the 49 Dian sword aura, the sword aura did not regenerate after being engulfed. This made him feel weak from the bottom of his heart. At that moment, he suddenly realized that he did not have any powerful killer move that could determine the outcome of the battle. Be it the transformation skill, the 49 Dian sword aura, or even the Red Abyss sword spirit, all of them allowed him to have fighting power that was above ordinary experts who had achieved boundary with thought. However, these great battles required time. It was just like when he wanted to capture Rosy Cloud's King alive. Rosy Cloud's King was clearly no match for him in terms of battle prowess. He had beaten Rosy Cloud's king to the point that he couldn't even fight back. However, because he didn't have a decisive method to quickly defeat Rosy Cloud's king, the battle was delayed again and again. If he didn't rely on the various mysterious characteristics of the Son of Chaos, he wouldn't have been able to capture Rosy Cloud's king before the experts from the King of Light's camp arrived. It was the same for real god Ikisi, whose fighting power was on par with Rosy Cloud's king. At that moment, he was deeply introspecting. If he had paid attention to this problem early on and studied a unique killer move, not only would he not have to face all kinds of troubles when dealing with real god Ikisi, but he would also be able to break through the restraint of the black hole's gravitational circle by relying on the explosion of the power and escape in one fell swoop. Ever since he had broken through to the vacuum-shattering realm, all the way to the divine true body, the realm of traversing, and even the realm of creating a world with a thought that he was now at, everything had been too smooth for him to realize these problems. And now, he was about to face the bitter consequences of his own carelessness. An incomplete law of time, Xing Hui's eyes flashed with pain. This was a great way created by the Lord of Time, who was as famous as the Lord of Chaos and the Lord of Gods, in order to pursue the legendary realm of eternity. It was almost equivalent to the direction of the Lord of Time's future breakthrough. The strength of this rule was so strong that even those powerful beings would not be able to avoid it, let alone a mere level 18 life form like him. Perhaps even the two supreme existences, the Lord of Chaos and the Lord of Gods, would not be able to completely ignore this power. If he did not want to be affected by this power and face the vicissitudes of life, he must struggle to get out. It took me a full 20 years to rush back to the Milky Way from the Kunlong world, which is 20 years more than the 16-year agreement. Even if the true god Aixin has been killed by me, the crisis of Earth's civilization should have been resolved. But after such a long time, who knows what the world of Earth has become? Xing Hui's heart was full of panic and uneasiness. 36 years. How many 36 years could there be in one's life? In addition, he had always had the greatest belief when he returned to Earth, and that was to find his senior sister Jiang Ningji again. But previously, it had been 13 years, and now it had been 36 years. Counting in this way, senior sister Jiang Ningji was at least 70 years old. If she spent another few decades in the gravitational sphere of the black hole. Even if Jiang Ningji did not die in the disaster of the dire beasts, she would have died of old age due to her lifespan. This is not the result I want, it's not. Xing Hui thought of this possible result and suddenly struggled even more fiercely. There's a way, there must be a way out. Black hole gravity. Even light can't escape, so what? As long as I'm strong enough, even a black hole will be crushed by me and blown up by me. A trace of madness flashed in Xing Hui's eyes. If he didn't go crazy, he wouldn't survive. At this moment, if he didn't go crazy, he would probably face a huge regret in his life that he would never be able to recover from. If this regret couldn't be fixed, it would devour his soul like a demon, making him uneasy for the rest of his life. Open for me. Xing Hui pinched his fingers into a sword, and a huge crystallized sword light suddenly emerged from his body and slashed at the constantly distorted dark void in front of him. But it was useless. The terrifying black hole that swallowed everything and bound him didn't even cause a ripple. But Xing Hui's hand movements didn't stop at all. If one slash didn't work, then 2 slashes. If 2 slashes didn't work, then 3 slashes. If 3 slashes didn't work, then 10 slashes, 100 slashes, 1,000 slashes, 10,000 slashes. Shatter. Shatter. The crystallized swordlight flashed crazily in Xing Hui's hand as it slashed. For every second he stayed here, a minute, an hour, a day, or even a month would pass in the outside world. He had to use the fastest speed, the most violent attack, and the most efficient method to completely tear this black hole apart. Quick! 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 I need to be faster. Stronger. The crystallized swordlight slashed crazily under the strong drive of Xing Hui's uneasiness and the strong belief in his heart. Not enough. Not enough. My sword isn't fast enough. The power of the sword isn't strong enough. Surpass. I need to surpass this limit, surpass. His thoughts were constantly tortured and tempered under the slashes of the sword light. In order to break the shackles of this black hole, his will and belief began to change under the influence of his rationality. He understood that his sword had to be faster and stronger to be able to transcend this black hole. Under this belief, the drive to break the black hole turned into a will to surpass himself. Even if his body had reached its limit under the continuous slashes of the sword, he still did not stop. It was like an ordinary person running a 10,000-meter long distance. His limit might only be 4,000 meters. For the next 6,000 meters, he no longer relied on his strong physical strength, but on his belief. He firmly believed that he could complete it, firmly believed that he could reach the finish line. It was the existence of this belief that drove him forward mechanically, never stopping, never stopping. Just when Xing Hui himself didn't know how many slashes he had made, suddenly he seemed to have sensed something. Under the effect of this feeling, his divine true body that had been stimulated to the limit and had grown to over 10,000 meters began to gradually compress and shrink. It was like a star with a diameter of 1,000,000 kilometers that began to compress from the inside out. It no longer increased its mass endlessly, but began to increase its density. Under this effect, the power of the sword light he had slashed out did not shrink, but gradually increased. When his divine true body had shrunk to 1,000 meters, he could finally see traces of ripples in the black hole before him. When his divine true body had shrunk to 100 meters, the black hole had begun to vibrate slightly. And when his divine true body had shrunk to a size of only 10 meters, the black hole's vibrations had become more and more obvious, as if it had reached the critical point of collapse. At this moment, Xing Hui's spirit, will, and even the essence in his body seemed to have been perfectly refined into a whole, turning into a simple action that could not be any simpler. That was: swing the sword. Swing the sword, continuously swing the sword. Just like back then, when he had first come into contact with sword cultivation, he had fully comprehended the mysteries of swordsmanship and immersed himself in it, thus feeling carefree as he swung the sharp sword in his hand. Although his cultivation was now countless times stronger than when he had first stepped onto the path of cultivation, at this moment, he felt exactly the same as when he had first stepped onto the path of sword cultivation. All of a sudden, he was enlightened. At this moment, he finally understood what he wanted. An ordinary person. Swing the sword like an ordinary person. Magical powers, domains, laws, and worlds, to him, they were all illusory and ethereal things that should not exist. Or it could be said that those things were not what he was good at, and they were not what he wanted. What he really wanted to do was to be like an ordinary person, comprehending the sword, practicing the sword, cultivating the sword, and learning the sword. What he could do was also to be like an ordinary person, comprehending the sword, practicing the sword, cultivating the sword, and learning the sword. Things that were too mysterious, too exquisite, and too profound were things that he couldn't comprehend, practice, cultivate, or learn. What he was truly good at, and what he was confident in, was only this simple action. Swing the sword. Do not forget your original intention, only then can you reach the end. Or perhaps, turn the complex into the simple, and return the great Tao to one. Crack. Finally, there was a slight change in the constantly vibrating black hole. Immediately after, the black hole that had been constantly swallowing everything began to shake rapidly, collapse, and completely explode. Just like the beginning of the universe, all the matter that it had swallowed over the years was ejected through the explosion. However, Xing Hui could not be bothered to pay any more attention to this. At this moment, he faintly felt that there was a change in his body that he could not understand. Under the influence of this change, the terrifying gravitational force of the black hole that distorted time and space seemed to be rapidly decreasing. Or it could be said that the surrounding four fundamental forces, the power of logic, the power of cause and effect, and even this incomplete space-time power, could no longer support his body. Apart from being able to ensure their existence, they could no longer have much of an effect on him. As his figure leaped forward, he appeared at the edge of the gravitational circle. Then, he took another step forward and shuttled through the gravitational circle. The starry sky. Or it could be said that the starry sky that had been swallowed by the black hole, which had become much more spacious, once again appeared in front of him. He had already escaped the shackles of the black hole. Chapter 833. It's out. At this moment, Xing Hui was still in a trance, as if he had not completely recovered from the madness not long ago. Or rather, he had not recovered from the series of changes just now. After a while, he seemed to have sensed something, and his spirit suddenly immersed itself in his own spiritual world, stopping at the fortune-sacred jade immediately. He did not know when the fortune-sacred jade had stopped deducing the great path that was completely compatible with him. At the instant he saw the fortune-divine jade, he understood exactly what the grand Tao that the fortune-divine jade had deduced for him and was completely compatible with him was. 1. One of Tao begets one. One of all techniques returned to one. This Tao eliminated all the changes he had and finally evolved into all techniques returned to one. The attack techniques he mastered were one. The energy in his body was one. His life form was one. All of these were one. When the evolution of the great path that was completely compatible with him was completed, his life essence that had long reached the critical point and was about to break through also completely transformed, reaching the level of a divine beast that could integrate with Tao and transform his body into Tao. However, the transformation of his life essence was obviously different from the life essence of a divine beast that he understood. When a divine beast broke through to level 18, a miniature world would be formed in its body. When it reached level 19, the miniature world would be supported by the power of Great Path and have the ability to operate on its own, endlessly growing and multiplying. This was the origin sacred body. As for the level 20 divine beast form, Xing Hui had never seen or heard of it before. He only vaguely heard that it seemed to be on the path of atavism and returning to the origin, using one's body to supplement one's Tao. However, Xing Hui's current form was a whole. His divine true body that was tens of thousands of meters was directly compressed into a human form of 10 meters, no, not tens of thousands of meters. Xing Hui had a hunch that if he released his divine true body to the largest form that he could maintain at this time, it would be as large as 100,000 meters. This was equivalent to the level of a divine beast in the chaos realm. A divine true body of 100,000 meters was compressed into a body of 10 meters. One could imagine how tyrannical the power contained in his body was. It was no wonder that even the gravitational support of the black hole and the 4 fundamental forces in the territory of the Time Master had no effect on him. It was not that these things did not exist, but, compared to a terrifying celestial body like a black hole, his body had already become a terrifying existence that was not inferior to a black hole. In fact, in terms of concept, he was even superior to the black hole. It was a singularity that existed yet did not exist. In Taoism, the evolution of yin and yang was one of all things. It was a unique life form that had jumped out of the 3 realms and wasn't part of the 5 elements. By the time he fully comprehended the mysteries of this realm and completely understood the Tao that was completely compatible with him, even if he stood in the center of the black hole would not be able to do anything to him. Father. The moment Xing Hui jumped out of the gravitational circle, the Scarlet Abyss Sword Spirit, who looked rather tired, immediately came up to him and said guiltily, "Father, I couldn't destroy the gravitational circle of this black hole to save you. How long has it been?" Xing Hui's gaze landed on the Scarlet Abyss Sword Spirit. He shook his head and allowed his mental state to gradually recover before asking. Already, the Scarlet Abyss Sword Spirit did some calculations. I was also affected by the gravitational sphere, so my estimation isn't accurate. However, it should have been 60 years. 60 years. Xing Hui's heart trembled. 60 years. Even if he did his best and comprehended his Tao at the last moment, 60 years had still passed. 60 years, including the previous 36 years and the year when he rushed to the Milky Way, it had been 97 years since he last left Earth, nearly 100 years. 100 years, the enchantment supported by the sacred tree on earth should have dissipated. In other words, earth should now be exposed to the vision of the Time King. Thinking of this, Xing Hui let out a long sigh. Although it may be too late, we should still rush to the solar system as quickly as possible. Scarlet Abyss, you've worked hard during this period. But I didn't help father at all. The Scarlet Abyss Sword Spirit said dejectedly. You've already done very well. As Xing Hui spoke, he waved his hand and the Scarlet Abyss Sword Spirit also turned into a divine sword and was worn by him. After doing this, Xing Hui's figure flashed and flew toward the hiding place of his spaceship. As his figure moved, he could clearly feel that the restraint of the entire world on him had become extremely small. Although the many basic great Daos that the Time King had opened up in his territory were far above his in terms of power, they could no longer cause much of an impact on him in terms of level. Jumping out of the 3 realms and not being bound by the 5 elements. This is the realm that golden immortals of the immortal Dao civilization should be at. According to the information from the people in the Kun Dragon Great World, there are true immortals, Tai immortals, and golden immortals in the immortal Dao civilization. Golden immortals should be golden immortals, which should correspond to golden immortals who have cultivated the origin sacred body at the 2nd level of the Chaos Realm. Xing Hui frowned. He had never seen a real Chaos Realm powerhouse, nor had he come into contact with a real dominator, but he could feel that, compared to when he was at level 18, he was much stronger now. When he had completely refined the great Daos that he had comprehended, he should be able to reach the supreme level, but he was still far from the dominator level. However, if he was not at the dominator level, how could he have so many mysteries that were similar to the dominator level or golden immortal level? Xing Hui pondered. After a while, his gaze focused on the great Dao that was completely compatible with him. Perhaps, that was where the problem lay. He thought of the differences between the 12 divine beasts and the 6 divine saints. The 12 divine beasts could cultivate the origin sacred body when they stepped into the Chaos Realm, and their combat power was 10 times that of a human in the Chaos Realm. The 6 divine saints did not cultivate the great Daos of the 12 divine beasts. Instead, they cultivated the great Daos of metal, wood, water, fire, earth, and wind that had been left behind since ancient times. As these great Daos had long been broken, although the 6 divine saints could reach the Chaos Realm, they were far from being comparable to the 12 divine beasts in terms of strength and development potential. Looking at it from these aspects, the problem should lie in the so-called Great Dao. If the Great Dao was strong, the living beings who cultivated it would be stronger. If the Great Dao was weak, the living beings who cultivated it would be weaker. The broken ancient great Daos of the 6 divine saints made them much weaker than the divine beasts. Compared to the dilapidated ancient great Daos cultivated by the 6 sages, his great Dao, which had just been created to suit him and did not belong to the great Dao of the 3,000 great Daos, was clearly weaker. It was so weak that even though he was at the 3rd level of the Chaos Realm, he was only comparable to the 1st level of the 12 divine beasts' great Dao. No, not compared to the 1st level Chaos Realm of the 12 divine beasts, but compared to the 1st level Chaos Realm of the humans. Compared to the 1st level Chaos Realm of the divine beasts, the 1st level Chaos Realm of the humans was even weaker. This could be seen from the fact that the divine beasts in the Chaos Realm were 10 times stronger than humans, and the origin sacred body that the divine beasts could cultivate at the 1st level Chaos Realm could only be cultivated at the 2nd level Chaos Realm. Weak in one aspect, weak everywhere. Then, what I need to do next is to continuously perfect my great Dao. Until the day when my great path of uniting to one is completed. Dao, what is Dao? The ultimate view of the universe, the laws of the universe, and the search for Dao. It originates from thinking, from sudden inspiration, from the answer to a riddle that has not been solved for a long time. No matter how one thinks or searches, at the beginning, it is all vague. Hence, there is the saying of proving Dao. Just like a scientist's physics formula, before it becomes a formula, it needs to go through countless verifications, analysis, and then verify all the information one has learned and comprehended to verify whether it is correct or not. This is actually the process of proving Dao. Xing Hui sat on the spaceship and set the route to Earth. He kept meditating. Tao, in the process of meditation, it gradually became clear. Now, I have a direction for my Tao. It is equivalent to having a foundation of verification for a formula. Next, I need to use my words and actions to prove that this Tao is not an ordinary Tao. If I can continue to practice until the end, that is proving Tao. Xing Hui understood. His Tao was simple and uncomplicated. There was no need for divine abilities, spells, domains, or laws. All one had to do was follow the belief that the Great Tao was the most simple and that the Great Tao was one. He had to keep polishing himself and his sword Tao until he became a singularity and his sword Tao became one. He had to use the singularity as a sword and become one with the sword. That was his Tao. The singularity leaps out of the three realms and is no longer part of the five elements. This is already the foundation of the singularity. What I need to do next is to make this singularity perfectly explain the concept of existence and non-existence. As for the Tao of the sword, I need to do my best to simplify the complex until the moment I swing my sword, it will be perfect and flawless. It will be so natural that there will be no traces of the Tao of the sword. It will be as if it itself represents the Tao, represents existence, and represents eternity. Existence and non-existence. Black holes were the concepts of existence and non-existence in human observation. It was said to exist, but it would devour all matter in the universe. Even light could not escape from it. It was said to not exist, but people could determine its location through various external factors, such as gravitational waves and changes in magnetic fields. Singularity was obviously a more mysterious phenomenon than black holes. Its existence might not only devour matter, light, and neutrinos in the universe, but it would also devour gravitational waves, magnetic fields, and other changes in it. It would completely erase any traces of its existence. No one could gain insight into its information, its form, and no one could explain its phenomenon. But it existed. That was the final form of the Tao that he was pursuing. Singularity cultivation. My current form can only get rid of the black hole. In fact, the reason why I was able to get rid of the black hole formed by true God Ikisi was because the black hole was not strong enough. If it was the black hole in the center of the silver core, I might not be able to get rid of it. Then, the first step of my cultivation is to continue to increase my body size. Then, with the help of the Tao that I have comprehended, I will convert the body size into mass, simplify the complexity, and return the Tao to one. Until the day comes when even the black hole in the center of the silver core cannot devour my form of existence. Xing Hui was enlightened. A brand new Tao, a brand new path, gradually became clear as he meditated. Chapter 834. The spaceship kept shuttling through the starry sky. At this moment, the spaceship was driven by the cosmic tide, which was second only to the dimensional jump in the territory of the Lord of Time. Of course, some powerful civilizations could build stargates between galaxies. Through these stargates, they could travel tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of light years in an instant. However, this required the help of the external environment. It was not a conventional flight method, so it was not included in the list. Relying on the cosmic tide, the solar system was only half a month away from him. The restrictions are smaller, but the compatibility is also lower. Xing Hui stood in the spaceship and carefully sensed the various changes brought about by his breakthrough. His realm was similar to that of a Daluo golden immortal. He had jumped out of the three realms and was not in the five elements. As a result, the influence of many forces on him had decreased greatly. Correspondingly, due to the uniqueness of his Tao, his understanding and application of laws, magical powers, and immortal techniques were also greatly reduced. Of course, at his realm, he only needed to understand a little of the principles in many aspects and he could do it easily. Just like the dimensional jump in the territory of the Lord of Time, as long as he understood the theory of dimensions, with the characteristics of his Tao, the lower dimensions would not form any restrictions on him. He could easily enter the higher dimensions and carry out dimensional shuttling. In a flash, he could probably travel a few light years, dozens of light years, or even hundreds of light years. There were also various immortal techniques. He had the special trait of being in between existence and non-existence. The reversal of yin and yang was no longer of any use to him. Even the aura examination technique was no longer of use to him. He had the special trait of Tao, which allowed him to determine many things based on the operation of the great Tao with his naked eye. As for immortal techniques such as One Qi into Three Pure Ones and Future Reversal, their power had decreased greatly. His characteristics of being between existence and non-existence made it difficult for the power of his One Qi into Three Pure Ones to reach the chaotic realm. It was good enough that he could maintain a combat power of level 18. As for future reversal, the moment he jumped out of the three realms and was no longer in the five elements, his future was no longer detectable. Since he could not detect his own future, others could not detect his future. Overall, the advantages outweighed the disadvantages. It was like an official. Although he had lost the power in his hands, he still had the privilege of being above the law. This was Tsing Hui's current situation. Buzz. Along with a slight tremor, the spaceship gradually slowed down from its superluminal speed. The scene before Tsing Hui's eyes turned from an unfamiliar starry sky to one that was incredibly familiar. It was especially so for the star in the center of this small galaxy, which filled him with nostalgia. "Son," Tsing Hui murmured. But in the next second, he seemed to have noticed something, and his expression changed. With a single step, it was as if the restrictions of the laws of space and light speed did not exist before him. He easily crossed them, and his figure directly appeared where Earth was. What made him somewhat incredulous was that the place where Earth was located at this moment was actually no longer the aqua-blue planet of Earth, but rather, it was a star that was extremely similar to Earth. Even if its mass was almost the same, it was definitely not Earth. Life had also been born on this planet. There were many flowers, plants, and trees. Its mass, volume, atmosphere, and position in the solar system were exactly the same as the previous Earth. It did not even cause any abnormalities in the solar system's gravitational pull. But, it was not Earth. What's going on? Tsing Hui was a little shocked. He took a step forward and landed on a planet that looked like Earth but was definitely not Earth. Could it be that the Tree of God's enchantment is simulating Earth? But Tsing Hui reached out and touched the soil under his feet. The feeling was so real. This was definitely not something that could be explained by the concealment of the Divine Tree's enchantment on Earth. Furthermore, if the Divine Tree's enchantment was really a simulation of Earth's environment, it was impossible for him to not see through it at his current level. One had to know that having one's own Tao was equivalent to the realm of a golden immortal. Tsing Hui estimated that in terms of realm, even a third-tier chaotic realm great medium would not be comparable. After all, the great mediums only transformed their bodies into Tao, turning themselves into a part of the great Tao incarnation. Wherever they were, the great Tao would revolve. It was nothing more than them cultivating the great Tao derived from the 12 divine beasts, making themselves incomparably powerful. If they were to cultivate the ancient great Tao of metal, wood, water, fire, earth, and wind, it would be very difficult for them to suppress a great golden immortal when they reached the third level of the chaotic realm. This isn't Earth. Where did Earth go? Could it be that it was discovered and destroyed by the Time King? No. If the Time King had really discovered Earth and destroyed it, then he wouldn't have needed to move such a star to cover up anything. From the way he planned to cover up Earth, he obviously understood the value of Earth and didn't want Earth to be discovered by the Time King. Then, only the Master of Chaos and the Master of Gods could have moved Earth. Besides these two, there's another possibility, which is the most probable one. Tsing Hui raised his head and looked at the empty galaxy that had not changed at all. Even the positions of the sun and moon had not changed, the immortal Tao civilization. Qing Su said confidently, only the immortal Tao civilization would be able to move a planet here without alerting anyone, fooling everyone before leaving with the planet Earth, because only they would understand what this planet known as the origin world means to the immortal Tao civilization. This guess was more than 90% true. Nearly 100 years had passed, and the divine tree enchantment had dissipated. Earth, the star, was completely exposed to everyone's vision. Since the forces under true God Aixen could detect this star, the immortal Tao civilization naturally had a chance of finding it as well. Moreover, other than the immortal Tao civilization, Xing Hui could not think of anyone who would take the extra step of moving a star similar to Earth to maintain the stable operation of the solar system. Xing Hui's gaze began to size up the solar system again. He wanted to find traces of the immortal Tao civilization coming here. To be able to move a star and leave quietly, one had to be a true immortal of the immortal Tao civilization. Only a true immortal could bring a star into their own immortal empire and move it away. The operation of an immortal empire was equivalent to a world or a star. As long as it was not too long ago, there would always be some traces left behind. If he had not obtained his own Tao, and could not comprehend the other 6 great Taos in the territory of the Lord of Time, he naturally would not have been able to sense these traces. But now, he could give it a try. Traces, they really do exist. Based on these traces, I can only conclude that Earth was moved much earlier than I thought. It should be 90 years ago. In other words, not long after Xing Hui had come to Earth and left, Earth had been moved away. The immortal Tao civilization. Xing Hui searched the solar system for 3 whole days. After confirming that he could not rely on these simple remnants of information to track down the cultivators of the immortal Tao civilization who had moved Earth, he quickly boarded the Lucky Star spaceship. After setting the destination, he rushed to the command center of the 823rd Theater of Operations at full speed. After flying for more than a year, the space plane where the command center was located appeared before his eyes. Xing Hui quickly came to the main hall where the mission was accepted and handed in. He placed his identity token in front of a light screen and said, "Mission completed, the mission to investigate the traces of true God Aixen in the camp of the Master of Gods. Not only have I completed the mission to investigate the traces of true God Aixen, but I have also killed true God Aixen. Requesting more merit points. The process is being reviewed. Please wait. According to the information you have provided, true God Aixen was indeed killed by you. You will receive 16 merit points for the investigation mission, as well as 3,000 merit points for killing true God Aixen. The merit points have now been recorded in your identity token. Please check it yourself." Soon, the light screen sent out waves of information. Xing Hui glanced at the information and was quite satisfied with the reward of merit points. On this battlefield, the number of merit points obtained from killing a strong practitioner of the boundary realm with a thought fluctuated between 1,000 and 10,000. Some people with special value could obtain more than 10,000 merit points. Killing an enemy equivalent to level 19 would give 100,000 merit points, and level 20 would give 10 million merit points. As for level 21, which was equivalent to level 3 Great Divine Arts of the Chaos Realm, not only could one obtain a huge amount of merit points, but they would also be bestowed with precious treasures, such as Master God weapons, Primordial Chaos Divine weapons, and even Creation Divine weapons that were hard to come by for Great Divine Arts. After obtaining these merit points, Xing Hui did not hold anything back. He immediately took out the 3,000 merit points and spent them to search for information about the immortal Tao civilization in the 823rd zone. At the same time, he also spent 1,000 merit points to exchange for information related to the complete solution of the high-dimensional world. This was to avoid the awkward fate of not being able to fly faster than light once he lost the spaceship. As he rapidly spent the 3,000 merit points, he quickly obtained a set of detailed information regarding the immortal Tao civilization. As the Master of Time, the Master of Chaos, and the Master of Gods were all banishing the immortal Tao civilization, the immortal Tao civilization did not dare to expose themselves if they wanted to survive in the territories of the 3 great existences. Each and every one of them tried their best to hide. On the contrary, the cultivators of the immortal Tao civilization were rather active in the war zones where the three great existences were fighting. As one of the war zones, the 823rd zone naturally had many traces of the immortal Tao civilization's activities. Tsing Hui's gaze lingered on this set of information for a moment. Soon, he locked onto three areas that were suspected to have the immortal Tao civilization's activities. These three areas were in the Milky Way galaxy, the Andromeda galaxy, and the Triangular galaxy. Although it was still unknown whether or not the immortal Tao civilization existed in these three areas, Tsing Hui did not stop after accepting the mission to search for traces of the immortal Tao civilization. He once again activated the spaceship and rushed toward the Andromeda galaxy, which was the closest to the command center, at the fastest speed possible. He had to ensure the immortal Tao civilization's specific attitude toward the humans on Earth, as well as ensure that Earth's current situation was safe. Chapter 835. Xiao. In the Andromeda galaxy, more than 2 million light-years away from the Milky Way galaxy, Tsing Hui was riding a 15th-order flying ship. It was using the warp drive to travel faster than light. He had used 5 contribution points to exchange for this ship. The reason why he didn't use the lucky star that Yin Yu had given him was because the grade of the lucky star was too high. Those who could ride a 17th-order ship would not be weaker than 17th order. Most of the life forms that rode 17th-order ships were 18th order, 19th order, or even 20th order civilizations. With the immortal Tao civilization's current situation, if he really rode such a ship to search, he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to see the immortal Tao civilization's cultivators. Those cultivators would have already hidden in some corner. Therefore, using a 15th-order ship as a disguise wouldn't be too inefficient, and it wouldn't alert the enemy. Tsing Hui put down the book on the cultivation method of dimensional leaps and his gaze fell on a compass. This was a compass specially used to detect information. It was a product of a 20th-order civilization and was called the interstellar compass. With this compass, all the information within 100,000 light-years would be collected by this compass. In other words, it could monitor the movements of half of the Andromeda galaxy. It was worth 1,000 military merits, and every year it was used, it would cost an additional 100 military merits worth of precious resources. It should be known that killing a world realm expert with a single thought would only earn 1,000 military merits. In other words, the value of this compass was enough to buy the life of a world realm expert. Seeing that Tsing Hui was spending so many military merits to search for traces of the immortal Tao civilization, it could be said that he was sparing no expense. It's been 3 years, there's no news at all. The immortal Tao civilization's cultivators have hidden themselves too well. Should I return to the Bloodshed World, then go from the Bloodshed World to the Kun Dragon Great World and ask the Rosy Dawn King for the coordinates of the True Sun Great World, then use the World Rainbow Bridge to rush to the True Sun Great World, and then use the True Sun Great World's teleportation array to return to the Divine Wilderness Great World? The Divine Wilderness Great World's Fortune Mainland's transmission array leads directly to Earth, or rather, to the Source World. Since the cultivators of the immortal Tao civilization have moved the entire Earth over, if I really use the transmission array directly from the Fortune Mainland, there's a high probability that I'll reach Earth directly. Tsing Hui looked at the dead starry sky in front of him. His worry for the unknown of Earth made him a little anxious. Even though he guessed that Earth would not be persecuted if it fell into the hands of the immortal Tao civilization, but the difference between the Earth civilization and the immortal Tao civilization was too great. The technological level of the Earth civilization was at most around the 10th level, but the immortal Tao civilization, even the immortal Tao civilization lurking in the Milky Way and Andromeda galaxy would not be lower than level 17. This was equivalent to the difference between a Golden Core Realm cultivator and a Transversal Realm cultivator. Even if both sides belonged to the same camp, if the Transversal Realm cultivator was dissatisfied with the Golden Core Realm cultivator, he could kill the Golden Core Realm cultivator with a wave of his hand. Where is the immortal Tao civilization hiding? Tsing Hui muttered to himself. Just as Tsing Hui was searching aimlessly, a message was suddenly picked out by his interstellar compass. Buzz buzz. Request for help, request for help. We are a level 14 civilization, the Manyun civilization. We have been attacked by an unknown force, suspected to be an immortal Tao civilization, requesting help from the Andromeda Civilization Alliance, Manyun civilization. Suspected to be attacked by an immortal Tao civilization. Sing Hui's gaze immediately locked onto this message. At the same time, he activated the tracking function of the interstellar compass to trace the source of this message. In the lineage of the Time Lord, level 12 and below belonged to the galactic civilization. Only level 13 could be called a true galactic civilization and be qualified to travel through space. Although the Manyun civilization in front of him had reached level 14 and had the ability to fly faster than the speed of light, its flying speed would definitely not exceed 10 times the speed of light. This distress message could only be broadcasted to 100 light-years away. Unless a high-level civilization passed by countless years later, it would be impossible for it to be captured by the Andromeda Civilization Alliance. At that time, the immortal Tao civilization would have already taken away what they wanted and gone into hiding again. Found it, the source of the message is 6 light-years away. Damn it, this message is actually not transmitted over a long distance, but at the speed of light. In other words, it has been 6 years since they were attacked. I hope the immortal Tao civilization hasn't left yet. Sing Hui immediately put away this level 15 spaceship. His spaceship could only fly at 80 times the speed of light. If he wanted to rely on this spaceship to travel 6 light-years away, it would take him nearly a month. Fortunately, during these 3 years of aimless wandering, he did not gain nothing. Not only did he have a deeper understanding of his own path, but he also took the opportunity to learn the dimensional jump method of the Time Lord's civilization. 6 light-years, to him, was not a distance at all. As Tsing Hui appeared in the starry sky, in the next moment, his figure leaped. Among the 4 great fundamentals that the universe had blessed him with, the power of logic, the power of causality, and even the other laws that had been deprived by the Lord of Chaos and the Lord of Gods, as well as the remaining laws of the universe itself, all dissipated. He easily broke free from the shackles of these laws and allowed himself to escape into the high-dimensional space opened up by the Time Lord. Then, according to the coordinates of the message, he immediately descended. In less than a few breaths, his figure had already reappeared from the high-dimensional space and descended into the low-dimensional space. The descent of the dimension caused a mighty energy to sweep out from his body. It spread in all directions like a solar storm, causing energy to the galaxy in front of him that was not inferior to the energy of a star eruption. However, before this energy had time to spread, Tsing Hui had already waved his hand and dispersed all the energy that had erupted. At the same time, he immediately looked toward the Manyun civilization. Although the Man-Cloud civilization was a rank 14 civilization, it was obvious that they did not have much research in interstellar navigation. Apart from developing 12 mineral planets in their own galaxy and modifying a planet in the habitable zone, they did not have any other administrative planets. In other words, this was a small civilization whose influence had just stepped out of its own galaxy and was less than a light-year away. Sing Hui's gaze swept across and could clearly see the traces of war left behind by this civilization. No. It could not be called a war. It should be a one-sided crushing. At the very least, Tsing Hui could see that the number of battleships of this civilization was less than 30. Based on the level of a level 14 civilization, they should have accumulated 1,000 to 10,000 battleships. The reason why there were less than 30 battleships left was needless to say, all of them had been destroyed. From the looks of it, the war ended 4 years ago. To end the war in 2 years and destroy a level 14 civilization, it should be a level 16 Immortal Path expert who took action. Level 16 Immortal Path experts do not have the ability to master dimensional jump. If they were to fly faster than light, their speed should not exceed 1,000 times the speed of light. In other words, the fastest they could have left this civilization was only 4,000 light-years away. Sing Hui's eyes flashed, and he quickly searched for traces of the Immortal Path civilization's cultivators retreating. Soon, he had already cast his gaze on a nearby star system. The Immortal Path civilization's cultivators wanted to use the influence of that star to erase their traces. However, 4 years was still a little short. Their method of erasing traces would have been given up by an expert who could create worlds with a single thought. Only a primal chaos realm expert would be able to use instruments to track their direction. However, a level 16 Immortal Path expert, a primal chaos realm expert, would probably be too lazy to chase after them even if they could detect their direction. After all, a level 16 Immortal Path expert was only comparable to a divine true body expert. The difference was too great. However, it was different for Tsing Hui. He had searched the universe for 3 years without finding any clues. Now that there was even the slightest trace, he was not willing to give up. Moreover, he understood that those who could move stars were at least level 18 Immortal Path experts. In other words, there must be an Immortal Path organization led by a level 18 Immortal Path expert hiding in this star field. If this level 16 Immortal Path expert in front of him was related to that level 18 Immortal Path expert, he might be able to track down that level 18 Immortal Path expert, just like how he had found True God Aixin, and from there, find Earth. With that thought in mind, Tsing Hui took a step forward, and with the help of a high-dimensional warp, he traversed 10 light-years in front of him. After traveling 10 light-years, Tsing Hui once again sensed the traces left behind by that level 16 Immortal Path expert. After slightly altering his direction of pursuit, he once again gave chase. Using warp drive to travel at faster than light speed required the modification of spacetime. This kind of trace was not so easy to erase in a short period of time. Even if that level 16 Immortal Path expert consciously erased the traces he had left behind, he still could not escape Tsing Hui's detection. 10 times, 20 times, 30 times, Tsing Hui performed dimensional warps time and time again, constantly closing in on that level 16 Immortal Path expert. During the process, he could clearly sense that he was getting closer and closer to that level 16 Immortal Path expert. When he performed another dimensional jump, a spaceship flying faster than the speed of light appeared in front of him. 400 light-years. It seems that after using his own ability to fly for a certain distance, he used a spaceship from a level 16 Immortal Path civilization to avoid arousing suspicion. These people from the Immortal Path civilization are so well hidden. It's no wonder that even with the help of the Galactic Compass and my own realm not inferior to those level 3 Chaos Realm experts, it took me 3 years to find a trace of them. Tsing Hui stared at the spaceship. Let me see their course. Tsing Hui took out the lucky star, and with the help of the photon computer on the lucky star, he quickly broke through the defense system of the Immortal Path civilization's cultivators and obtained their star map. However, apart from their destination, they had erased all other traces on the star map. It could be said that they were extremely cautious. Their destination is the Shuaer civilization. I've investigated this civilization before, and there are no traces of the Immortal Path civilization. It seems that they still have a mission. With the speed of their spaceship, it will take at least 14 years to reach the Shuaer civilization. I can't wait that long. Thinking of this, Tsing Hui did not waste any more time. With a clench of his hand, the spaceship that was flying at full speed was directly grabbed by his hand, and he forcefully pulled it out of warp drive. Chapter 836. Oh no, we've been attacked. Could it be the Manyun civilization? But we've obviously disguised ourselves well and eliminated all traces. Even a rank 18 civilization might not be able to find out that we're the culprits. At this moment, in the spaceship that Tsing Hui had captured, the 3 leaders, 2 men and 1 woman, as well as the dozens of people in charge of maintaining the normal operations of the spaceship, were panicking. Don't panic. We're disguised as cultivators from a technological civilization under the Time Lord. As long as we don't use the Immortal Path secret technique, no one will be able to see through our identities. There's a civilization alliance in the Andromeda Galaxy. It's formed by 2 rank 17 civilizations and 44 rank 16 civilizations. Meaningless invasions and attacks are prohibited. Although we've been captured, I'm sure he won't dare to harm our lives. The middle-aged man, who had the highest status among the three leaders, spoke in a low voice. At the same time, he ordered the two people beside him, Ting Yin, go and stabilize the other members. Fu Zhen, try to contact this powerful individual who captured our spaceship alive. Ah, Lord Moving Mountain. The two responded and were about to take action, but at this moment, the central computer in the spaceship opened the door, and a figure appeared in front of the three of them. Hello, cultivators from the Immortal Path Civilization. The one who stepped in was Tsing Hui. Immortal Path Civilization. When Qing Su said those four words personally, Moving Mountain, Ting Yin, and Fu Jian, who were in the lead, immediately felt like their breathing had stopped slightly. However, very soon, Moving Mountain forced himself to calm down. Emissary of the Great Advanced Civilization, may I ask if you're talking about the Immortal Civilization? I think there must be some misunderstanding. We're not members of the Immortal Path Civilization. We're from the distant Shui, Civilization, a rank 16 civilization. Now, we're returning to our own civilization. May I know what instructions you have for stopping us? Shui Civilization. Qing Su understood after a little thought. They must have infiltrated quite a lot of this civilization, which allowed them to obtain an identity on the surface. However, to infiltrate a level 16 civilization, your immortal Dao civilization must have a virtual immortal equivalent to a level 17 expert, right? The last time I scouted the Shui, civilization, it was only a fleeting glance. If there really is a rank 17 false immortal hiding there, with the false immortal's ability to change between reality and illusion, it is indeed possible for me to overlook their existence. Then, as you said, I will bring you to the Shui, civilization to see if that false immortal is still there. After Tsing Hui finished speaking, he did not give the three of them any time to react. He led the three of them, and even their entire spaceship, and directly started a dimensional jump. When he burst out with a powerful energy and broke through the dimensional barrier to enter the higher dimensional space, and then descended from the higher dimensional space to the lower dimensional space to complete a jump, the faces of the people on the battleship turned pale at the same time. Dimensional jump, and it doesn't rely on any external equipment. It relies entirely on its own strength to jump. This is an ability that only a level 18 life form can fully grasp. True immortal, this life form before us is a true immortal. Moving Mountain felt a faint sense of despair in his heart. He could not understand why an existence equivalent to a true immortal would suddenly target them. It should be known that although the bounty for the cultivators of their immortal Dao civilization was extremely high, it was not enough for a true immortal to mobilize such a large force for them. After all, a true immortal was far inferior to a divine true body. If they really allowed this life form equivalent to a level 18 true immortal to go to the Shui, civilization and find the virtual immortal fairy Rosy Cloud who happened to be hiding there on a mission, then they would be the greatest sinners of their civilization. Captain, the power this life form uses does not seem to be the transformation of a technological civilization, nor does it seem to be the divine kingdom of a god. I can sense a trace of the direction of evolution of a chaotic creature on him, someone from the Master of Chaos. What's the use of that? The Master of Chaos, the Master of Time, and the Master of Gods are all our enemies. They can't wait for the immortal Dao civilization to be destroyed. Only when we are completely destroyed and the broken great Dao that belongs to us vanishes forever will this universe be completely unobstructed to them. They can then easily radiate their power throughout the universe and control its life and death. It won't be like now, where they can radiate their own power but are disrupted by the great Dao. Their consciousness can't monitor every corner of the area their power radiates. Moving Mountain's heart went cold. You don't have to worry. I bear no ill will towards your civilization, and I don't plan to send you to the Master of Chaos for merit points. At this moment, Qing Su's voice suddenly interrupted the conversation of the three of them. When the three of them heard this, they were so frightened that their faces turned deathly pale. You! How can you capture our consciousness? Our consciousness is highly condensed. Even the Master of Spirit under the Master of Time's command, who is most proficient in the development of spiritual force, cannot decipher our consciousness transmission. How can you, who comes from the direction of evolution of a chaotic creature? Consciousness transmission. Is this called consciousness? It is indeed very exquisite. Even a rank 18 true God, a world with a thought expert, or even a Master of Spirit might not be able to decipher it. Unfortunately, I can easily capture the information in your consciousness transmission, so your conversation is happening right under my nose. I can't not listen even if I want to. Of course, you don't have to worry. Even if your consciousness transmission has exposed the fact that you belong to the immortal Tao civilization, as I said, I bear no ill will towards you. You don't have to worry about your lives being threatened. Just bring me to the person in charge of your galaxy. After Tsing Hui finished speaking, a violent energy wave came from all around them. This was the release of energy that naturally existed when a higher dimension descended to a lower dimension. We've arrived at the Shuai civilization. We've arrived. Moving Mountain's heart trembled. They were more than 1,400 light-years away from the Shuai civilization. Even if they did a dimensional jump, it would take at least a few dozen or even a few hundred times. But just now, how many dimensional jumps did this terrifying being make? 3 or 4. 300 or 400 light-years in a single jump? It should be known that the further a dimensional jump was, the more energy was needed, and the greater the burden on the body. Without the help of external objects, a rank 18 life form could only jump 10 light-years at most, and a rank 19 life form could not jump more than 100 light-years at most. But now, this rank 18 life form in front of them had relied on its own ability to jump 300 or 400 light-years in a single jump, rank 20. This was a great feat that only a rank 20 life form could achieve. In other words, this terrifying being was very likely an existence equivalent to a Grand Luo immortal in the immortal Tao civilization. Let me carefully sense the location of that pseudo-immortal. Last time, I only caught a glimpse and didn't get a good look. Tsing Hui stopped outside the Shuai civilization. Although the Shuai civilization was also a rank 16 civilization, compared to the GMO civilization that ruled the Milky Way, it was a little weaker. Its area of control was only 60 light-years, and its range of influence was less than 1,000 light-years. After all, there were 2 rank 17 civilizations above them, and they did not dare to be as unscrupulous as the GMO civilization when it came to obtaining resources in the galaxy. It's hidden very well, but, after reducing the range from a few galaxies of tens of millions of light-years to 60 light-years, it's still very easy to find it. Oh, found it. Tsing Hui carefully sensed for less than half a day and quickly sensed that something was amiss. In fact, this was all thanks to Moving Mountain and the others. This was because he sensed that the pseudo-immortal existence was quietly retreating. Clearly, Moving Mountain had used a method unknown to him to send a message to the rank 17 pseudo-immortal Kai Yun, asking her to quickly escape. If that pseudo-immortal had not moved, Tsing Hui would have had to spend several years or even a decade to find her. However, when she moved, there was naturally a fluctuation that spread out and was naturally captured by Tsing Hui. It should be within this 1 billion kilometer range. I don't know which region it is exactly, but I can roughly deduce it. Then, Tsing Hui took a deep breath and suddenly shot toward that region. At the same time, he activated his Great Tao's existence force to the extreme. The Great Tao was the cornerstone of the world's existence. For example, in the territory of the Time King, it was formed by the 4 fundamental forces, the force of causality, and the force of logic. In addition to these 6 types of laws, there were also broken laws similar to the laws of space and time, as well as the laws that originally existed in this universe. It was precisely because of the existence of these laws that the normal operation of the universe was maintained. However, right now, Tsing Hui was activating his own Great Tao's existence force, which was equivalent to injecting a new Great Tao's law into this completely operating universe's laws. It was like a precision machine that suddenly had a screw added to it. Naturally, it would malfunction. As his great Tao's existence force spread, the laws in this territory were immediately disrupted. The false immortal Kai Yun, who was trying to sneak away using a method that Xing Hui could not comprehend, was immediately exposed. Even her palace treasure was clearly displayed in front of Xing Hui. After being exposed, the female false immortal called Kai Yun's pretty face paled. She made a prompt decision without any hesitation. Kuan Jing used the Heavenly Abode instrument to send a message to the Grand Unity Immortal Lord at maximum power. Tell him to retreat from this galaxy as quickly as possible. We've been exposed. We've been targeted by a powerful being with his own Tao. Tell him to leave quickly, the further the better. After sending the message, immediately destroy the Heavenly Abode instrument. Don't leave any traces that can be tracked. Understood. The 16th level cultivator called Long Kuan agreed with a painful gaze. This was the fate of all cultivators of the immortal Tao civilization. Once exposed, they would immediately have the upper echelons flee and completely hide. Meanwhile, they would sever all connections with the upper echelons and willingly become an abandoned pawn. They would use the last of their lives to buy time for the upper echelons to retreat. Wait. It took Xing Hui some time to decipher Fairy Rosy Cloud's message. He hurriedly tried to stop her. However, almost as soon as he spoke, an obscure message that even Xing Hui himself could only vaguely sense quietly dissipated. Then, a violent explosion rang out from the palace treasure, completely erasing all traces of the message. It was clear that Kuan Jing had perfectly carried out Fairy Rosy Cloud's orders. He had used the Heavenly Abode instrument to send a message and destroyed it. Xing Hui was speechless when he understood this. The struggle for the Great Tao is indomitable. The immortal cultivators of the immortal Tao civilization fight against the heavens, against the earth, and against men. You can destroy the form of our immortal Tao civilization, but you can never destroy our will. Fellow immortals, I'm very happy to have been able to work with all of you over the years. Now, let us join forces for one last time. Burn your immortal force and shine with the radiance of our immortal Tao civilization. Let these invaders understand that the will of our immortal Tao civilization will never yield. We will fight to the last man. Kill. Chapter 837. Since you call yourself a fairy, it's not good for a fairy to fight and kill all the time. Xing Hui looked at Fairy Rosy Cloud and the others, who looked like they would burn their immortal energy to fight him to the death in the next moment. Speechlessly, he pointed his finger and the great Tao circulated. The power of laws in the surroundings was completely expelled and even cut off by his finger. Immediately, the immortal energy circulating in the bodies of Fairy Rosy Cloud and the others almost stagnated. Taking advantage of this opportunity, he once again attacked with his true body. With a thunderous blow, he destroyed the protective magic treasures and immortal techniques of Fairy Rosy Cloud and the others on the spot, suppressing all the cultivators of the immortal Tao civilization in the entire palace. Great divine ability. Feeling the power of the great Tao being expelled from the surroundings, Fairy Rosy Cloud's face was filled with despair. Although the power of laws of the great Tao used by Xing Hui was much weaker than that of a true great divine ability, Fairy Rosy Cloud herself was only at the 17th level. In her opinion, a great divine ability would naturally not use all his strength to capture her alive. The more she thought of it, the more despair she felt in her heart. This galaxy is within the range of the Time Lord's power, so I can't use the personal space that the Son of Chaos can use. This is troublesome. It seems that when I have enough merit points, I'll have to exchange for a spatial artifact that can accommodate living things to imprison the targets I capture alive. As Xing Hui spoke, he quickly captured the 100 or so cultivators of the immortal Tao civilization led by Fairy Rosy Cloud and brought them into his 17th level spaceship, the Lucky Star. When the spaceship was first designed, it had considered the need to capture targets. There were several rooms specially used to imprison captives. Don't even think about getting the whereabouts of any of my fellow immortals out of me. Fairy Rosy Cloud glared at Xing Hui, her eyes full of anger. I've said that there's a misunderstanding between us. I don't have any malice toward you. In fact, I can also be called an inheritor of the immortal Tao civilization. Xing Hui said. Fairy Rosy Cloud looked at Xing Hui with a sneer, as if she would rather die than reveal anything to him. Xing Hui turned to look at the others. Just now, I sensed that a piece of information had been sent out by you. The instrument used to transmit the information is quite mysterious. I can't track the location of the information. So, if I can't find the location of the Grand Unity Immortal Master you speak of in a short time, the Grand Unity Immortal Master you speak of will soon change his target and go into hiding? That's right, after so many years, we have already gained a full understanding of your cultivation powers, and we already possess special magic treasures that can block your senses. If you want to use normal methods to find a void transformation immortal monarch, it is simply a pipe dream. Even if you use special treasures, you will have to spend thousands of years, or even tens of thousands of years. As a great divine ability user, you must have an important position. How can you leave your position for thousands of years? The leader of the group, Kun Jing, said coldly. Thousands of years, tens of thousands of years. Xing Hui looked at these people, and then glanced at Fairy Rosy Cloud, who was the leader. I don't mean to deal with you. I want to find the immortal Tao civilization. My real purpose is to confirm whether you have taken away a star in the solar system of the Orion arm of the Milky Way galaxy. Hearing Xing Hui's words, the others did not have much of a reaction. However, Xing Hui could clearly sense the mental fluctuations of Fairy Rosy Cloud at that moment. Although she had quickly concealed her mental fluctuations, Xing Hui still felt them. His gaze fell directly on Fairy Rosy Cloud. Very well, it seems that you know something. Now tell me, who took that star? Where are they now? Fairy Rosy Cloud looked coldly at Xing Hui, her pretty face full of mockery. She seemed to be mocking his attitude of questioning her. I've said it before, I don't have any enmity towards you. I only want that star. Xing Hui was somewhat displeased. However, as soon as he said this, he immediately felt that there was something wrong with his words. What did she mean by he only wanted that star? That was the source world. Who wouldn't want it? Compared to him, who was obviously a great master of the Master of Chaos, the source world was obviously more important in the eyes of the immortal Tao civilization. As expected. The sneer on Fairy Rosy Cloud's face became even more pronounced. Xing Hui knew that he could not use conventional methods to obtain the whereabouts of the immortal Tao civilization from Fairy Rosy Cloud. He immediately turned his gaze to the 100 or so immortal Tao civilization cultivators he had captured alive. Fairy Rosy Cloud, right? Even if you don't think for yourself, you should at least think for your subordinates. Perhaps you are not afraid of death and will not hesitate to sacrifice your life for the legacy of the immortal Tao civilization, but your subordinates. Before we accepted the mission to hide in the Andromeda galaxy, we were already prepared to sacrifice ourselves. Before Xing Hui could finish, he was interrupted by these people. For the glory of our immortal Tao civilization to reappear, we are not afraid to sacrifice ourselves. Invader. No, you can't even be considered an invader. You are just a bunch of pitiful creatures who have been deceived by the Master of Chaos. Wake up. Don't forget that this is our world. Whether it's the Master of Chaos, the Master of Time, or the Master of Gods, they are all despicable and cruel invaders who have brought endless pain and suffering to our world. What you're doing now is only helping the evildoers commit their crimes. Their eyes flashed with determination. None of them had the slightest fear in their hearts. Some of them even looked at him with a trace of pity. It was as if Xing Hui was the one being held captive and had no control over their own life and death, not them. Those who are awake are in the minority after all. Or rather, even if they are awake, they still choose to pretend to be asleep because they don't want to lose this beautiful life and give up the lofty power they currently possess. You will never be able to wake up someone who is pretending to be asleep. Fairy Rosy Cloud looked coldly at Xing Hui as she spoke. I've said before that you have a sharp butcher's knife. We can't stop the butcher's knife from destroying our life form, but you will never be able to rely on the butcher's knife to destroy our spirit and will. The glory of the immortal Tao civilization is eternal and everlasting. Xing Hui looked at Fairy Rosy Cloud and the hundreds of immortal Tao civilization cultivators who had come with her. He could see and feel that these people had truly disregarded their own life and death. Although some of them were afraid of death, their noble dedication to the immortal Tao civilization suppressed their fear of death. They wanted to ask about the world of Earth, which was what the immortal Tao civilization referred to as the origin world, from these people. But the immortal Tao civilization didn't seem to care about the world of Earth. It was basically impossible. Even if you were to tell them that he was born in the source world, they would never believe him. Even if Xing Hui gave them the opportunity to contact the void immortal monarchs and ask them to verify his information from the people on Earth, they would not do so. The means of the great divine masters were too profound, and the source world was too important to the immortal Tao civilization. They did not dare to guarantee that letting them go would not be a show of playing hard to get. Even if they really did contact the forces of the void immortal monarchs one day, it would probably only be after they were completely certain of their safety. The time needed for this would be calculated in thousands or even tens of thousands of years. Xing Hui, who had realized this problem, was silent for a long time. After a long while, he raised his head and looked at Fairy Rosy Cloud and the others. I mean you no harm, and I also mean no harm to the immortal Tao civilization. Back then, I had the help of a Tai sword spirit. I will prove this to you. Fairy Rosy Cloud looked at Xing Hui, her expression as cold as ever. Clearly, she had made it clear that she would not be bewitched by Xing Hui's words or even his mind. It seems that I can only take a detour from the Kun Dragon Great World and the True Sun Great World to return to the Divine Wilderness Great World. After going in a big circle, it's actually useless. I don't even have to worry about killing True God Aixin. Since a Tai immortal monarch from the immortal Tao civilization has intervened in this matter, True God Aixin's threat to the Earth civilization will naturally be resolved. Xing Hui shook his head and gave up the idea of getting information about Earth from Fairy Rosy Cloud. Among these people, only Fairy Rosy Cloud knew about Earth. Even if he killed Fairy Rosy Cloud might not tell him about Earth. As for the other immortal Tao civilizations, Xing Hui did not intend to continue searching. Not to mention that finding an immortal Tao civilization depended entirely on luck. Even if he was lucky enough to find an immortal Tao civilization, that immortal Tao civilization might not belong to the Void Transformation Immortal Monarch. Even if it did belong to the Void Transformation Immortal Monarch, it would be very difficult for him to find out the whereabouts of the Void Transformation Immortal Monarch from those civilizations. It would be a waste of time to continue searching. It would be better to directly teleport from the Divine Wilderness Great World to Earth. In any case, Earth had now been taken away by the Void Transformation Immortal Monarch of the Immortal Tao civilization. If the Void Transformation Immortal Monarch wanted to harm the humans on Earth, most of them would have already died. If he valued the humans on Earth, then the humans on Earth would have already embarked on the path of immortal cultivators. With the support of a Void Transformation Immortal Monarch, a large number of Golden Core Realm, Transcendent Realm, Astronomical Phenomenon Realm, and even Divine Realm cultivators would be born on Earth in the next 100 years. According to his understanding, the immortal Tao civilization was more proficient in prolonging one's life than the Master of Primal Chaos. Breaking through to the 7th Order would give one a lifespan of over 1,000 years. If one could cultivate to the 13th Order, which was equivalent to the Divine Realm, it would not be a problem to live for tens of thousands of years. He would not have to worry about wasting too much time and his father facing the misfortune of dying of old age. Whether it's a blessing or a curse, it will depend on the fortune of our civilization. Xing Hui sighed and was about to return to the 823rd District's command center. But at that moment, his identity token suddenly projected a figure. It was the vice captain of the Golden Rock Squad, Inu. Inu was slightly startled when he saw that the message was connected. Then, he said in pleasant surprise, "Dong Yang, it's you. Where are you?" If the message is connected, the distance between us should not be more than 10 million light-years. I'm in the Andromeda Galaxy. Xing Hui said. Andromeda Galaxy, that's great. We're in the Triangular Galaxy. Dong Yang, we've been targeted by a 19th Order civilization. We need your help. Considering the help the Golden Rock Squad could provide him, Xing Hui hesitated for a moment before coming to a decision. Give me your location. I'll be there immediately. Chapter 838. The 823rd War Zone was responsible for about 600 galaxies, covering an area of about 80 million light-years. Among these 600 galaxies, although the Andromeda Galaxy and the Milky Way Galaxy were larger in size, they were close to the headquarters and did not have any powerful civilizations. Although the Triangular Galaxy was not far from the Milky Way and the Andromeda Galaxy, the headquarters of the Time King's lineage was also located in the same galaxy, so it had the advantage of being closer to the headquarters. This galaxy, which was much smaller than the Milky Way and the Andromeda Galaxy, had dozens of level 18 civilizations and one level 19 civilization. When Xing Hui received the distress signal from Silver Feather and the others, he did not delay and headed toward the location they had shared with him at the fastest speed possible. Along the way, he relied on his understanding of high-level dimensions and the strength of his own body to continuously perform dimensional jumps. Each jump allowed him to travel at least a few hundred light-years. This number might not be huge compared to 100,000 times the speed of light, but 100,000 times the speed of light would require a year to travel 100,000 light-years. However, the dimensional jumps that Qing Su could perform right now allowed him to travel 400 to 500 light-years in a single go, and he could perform almost 1,000 dimensional jumps in a single day if he traveled at full speed. In other words, he could travel 400 to 500,000 light-years in a single day. Compared to 100,000 times the speed of light, this was more than 1,000 times faster. In terms of speed, even if I can't compare to those truly powerful beings, I'm not much slower than a ruler. While Xing Hui was performing dimensional jumps, he was still thinking about other things. Unfortunately, dimensional jumps could only be performed through high-level dimensions that the Time King had set up in his territory. In the world of the Master of Chaos, if one wanted to travel between two worlds, they still had to rely on teleportation formations and void travel. Compared to the dimensional jumps of the Time King's lineage, the efficiency was greatly reduced. This was also the reason why the Master of Chaos, who obviously had stronger combat power than the Time King and the Master of Gods, gradually became disadvantageous as he occupied more and more territory and resources. In terms of speed, the Master of Chaos was lagging behind the Time King. Silver Feather, I've arrived. What's your specific location? Xing Hui immediately sent a message after entering the Triangular Galaxy. You've arrived? Silver Feather, who received the message, was slightly stunned and seemed to be in disbelief. You bought a spaceship from a level 21 civilization. I'll send you our current location. Not long after, Xing Hui received a message from Silver Feather. It's not far. It's only 3,000 light-years away. The next moment, he had already started another dimensional jump. Dimension jumps placed a huge burden on the cultivator's body. Even Supremes at the first tier of the Primal Chaos realm who frequently performed dimension jumps, the moment they ascended and descended, the energy released would constantly affect their body. Over time, their body would still be damaged. It was just like an ordinary person running. Running a few thousand meters was training, but running tens of thousands of meters without caring about the limits of one's body would only harm one's body. Only dominators who had cultivated the sacred body of origin could continuously perform dimensional jumps. However, they relied on the power of circulation in their bodies to resist the burden of dimensional jumps. They were not like Xing Hui, who relied on the uniqueness of his own Tao to jump out of the three realms and not within the five elements to be almost unaffected by dimensional jumps. If not for the fact that his own Tao was too weak, there would not have been any ripples when he descended from a high-dimensional space to a low-dimensional space. It's just ahead. As Tsing-Hui completed his 8th dimensional jump, a dazzling explosion in the starry sky appeared in front of him. It was the light emitted by the detonation of a star. The detonation of a star would emit strong energy waves. Although it could not stop dimensional jumps, it had a huge impact on the cosmic tide and the warp drive. Clearly, Silver Feather and the others were using this method to stop the continuous pursuit of the technological civilization. Silver Feather, Golden Rock, Hallie. Tsing-Hui's voice echoed in the ears of the Golden Rock team. Dong Yang, you're here already. Where's your spaceship? Quick, let's use your spaceship to escape. Although this civilization has reached level 19, their development is very abnormal. Their advantage is limited to war. In terms of speed, they're only at the level of a level 18 civilization. If your spaceship can arrive so quickly, it must have the ability to perform dimensional jumps. Dimensional jumps are not affected by the black hole, so we can retreat. Silver Feather's anxious voice could be heard. Black hole. Tsing-Hui looked ahead. In the huge fleet of battleships in front of him, he could feel the existence of a few thousand special celestial bodies. These celestial bodies were mostly neutron star fortresses with a diameter of less than 10 kilometers. Other than the neutron star fortresses, there were 6 black holes that were difficult to be seen by the naked eye. Before level 19, the technological civilization under the Time King was limited by matter. In other words, no matter what kind of battleship they built, they had to rely on material energy, such as meteorites, planets, stars, and so on. However, after a civilization reached level 19, they could use the power of the Great Path Order to create something out of nothing and transform the void into energy. As such, the energy that they controlled was almost endless. In fact, this was similar to the nature of the Great Path Order that the giants in the Chaos Realm could obtain. In terms of power, these black holes are not much weaker than the black holes that real god Aikisi transformed into. No wonder Yin Yu and the others found it difficult to escape even though they had the protection of the Golden Rock, an expert who had refined his body to rank 18. Level 19 civilization, if I have the time, I would like to see how different they are. However, for now, I have to return to Kun Dragon Great World and borrow True Sun Great World and Divine Wilderness Great World from Kun Dragon Great World to return to Earth. I shall not waste any more time on you. After Tsing-Hui finished speaking, he went forward and grabbed the battleship that Silver Feather, Golden Rock, Hale, and the others were on. Then, the surrounding dimension began to change. As the dimension rose, there was a large amount of energy vacuum in the surroundings, causing waves and storms in the endless sea of stars. Instantly, the battleships that were planning to continue attacking were frightened. However, just as Tsing-Hui was planning to escape completely, a ripple exploded from a battleship that was hidden very deeply in front of him. Not only did it interfere with the stability of the dimension that Tsing-Hui was in, but it also reduced the dimension to a certain degree. It also separated the universe from the main universe, forming a small universe with a diameter of tens of light years. Universe slicing technique? This is the universe slicing technique that only a level 20 civilization can master. How is this possible? How could this civilization have developed to this extent in just 10,000 years? Silver Feather could not help but widen his eyes when he saw this scene. A level 20 civilization, Tsing-Hui was also somewhat surprised. A level 19 civilization upgrading to a level 20 civilization was not a good sign. He could fight against a level 19 civilization, but it did not mean that he could do anything to a level 20 civilization. The balance of the small universe is being destroyed at an extremely fast speed. It's the principle of entropy increase. They plan to use entropy increase to destroy this small universe, burying us and the small universe together. Silver Feather immediately sensed the intention of the other party's attack method. This was a terrifying method that could directly destroy a small universe. In the territory of the Lord of Chaos, it could destroy a great world and even kill a sovereign who had cultivated the origin sacred body. Fortunately, this civilization's technology was obviously not perfect. With a glance, Tsing Hui could still faintly sense the connection between this small universe that had been cut out and the great universe. In addition, the entropy increase attack used by this level 20 civilization was relatively slow. According to Tsing Hui's speculation, it would take about a month for him to use entropy increase to destroy this small universe with a diameter of 40 light-years. Thinking of this, Tsing Hui did not dare to delay. He exerted his unique ability to exist and not exist to the extreme. For a time, not to mention the 6 laws of nature in the territory of the Lord of Time, even the ancient laws left behind in the original universe were at their lowest point. After grasping an opportunity, his body suddenly shuttled, directly following the connection between the small universe and the great universe. He shuttled out of this small universe and returned to the great universe once again. After arriving at the great universe, Tsing Hui did not dare to delay any further and began to perform a dimensional jump at full speed. He was interested in learning more about a level 19 technological civilization and even using this civilization to verify the differences between them and himself. However, a level 20 civilization, that was equivalent to a second-tier sovereign. Before Tsing Hui refined his true body to the next level, he did not intend to confront such a civilization head-on. Buzz buzz. Relying on the dimensional jump, Tsing Hui quickly left the battlefield and appeared a few hundred light-years away. However, this distance was still not considered safe for a level 20 civilization. He had no choice but to perform a second dimensional jump. It was only when he was more than 1,000,000 light-years away from the level 20 civilization that Tsing Hui slowed down his dimensional jump. "We should be out of danger now," Tsing Hui said. Silver Feather, Golden Rock, and the others were relieved. Fortunately, the technological civilization under the rule of the Time King has a different cultivation direction from us. A level 20 technological civilization only has the ability to kill a second-tier sovereign with all its fleets combined. What attacked us just now was only a single fleet from that level 20 civilization, which is equivalent to the incarnation of a sovereign. Otherwise, we might not even have been able to escape from this civilization. Tsing Hui nodded and asked, "How did you provoke this level 20 civilization? Also, there's a level 20 civilization in the triangular galaxy. This matter is too inconceivable. You might not believe it, but according to our understanding, this civilization should only have rank 17. Level 17. Silver Feather nodded heavily. 4,000 years ago, we came into contact with this civilization. At that time, this civilization was indeed only level 17. However, based on our understanding, this civilization took less than 3,000 years to reach level 17 from level 13. This means that it has not been more than 20,000 years since their birth. 3,000 years? You mean to say that this civilization only used 7,000 years to advance from level 13, which is equivalent to a domain realm, to level 20, which is comparable to a sovereign? Tsing Hui was shocked. Yes. This is the main reason we came to this war zone this time. However, we did not expect them to evolve to level 20 in such a short time. If not for you, Dong Yang, our team would have been defeated. Golden Rock said, his words filled with gratitude towards Tsing Hui and joy at escaping death. Chapter 839. There must be a great secret in this civilization. Could it be that they've inherited some top civilization's legacy? Qing Su also developed quite a bit of curiosity towards this civilization. That's impossible. What kind of legacy could allow them to evolve from level 13 to level 20 in 7,000 years? The leap is too great. Even a top level 21 civilization might not have this ability. Golden Rock paused for a moment. Unless they have the support of the evil god. Captain, don't forget that aside from the evil god, the Time Lord also has this ability. Silver Feather said. The Time Lord? Yes, the Time Lord. Silver Feather nodded heavily. We should have noticed it during our battle with them. The strength of this civilization doesn't lie in the advanced level of their battleships. Instead, it lies in their numbers and control. Because their battleships aren't particularly advanced, we mistook them for a level 19 civilization before they used the cosmic severing technology. We almost put Dongyang in danger because of our wrong judgment. When she said that, she gave Qing Su a rather apologetic gaze. Qing Su waved his hand and thought nothing of it. Instead, he asked with interest, "So you're saying, this civilization possesses computational abilities so great that it exceeds their civilization level? The Time Lord gave them this power?" "Yes," Silver Feather said. "You said, Dong Yang and Captain, you should know that our Chaos Dominion has Taoist rhymes, the Lord of God's Dominion has divine rhymes, and the Lord of Time's Dominion has something called time rhymes. In fact, these three things are essentially the same. They are a special substance left behind after the destruction of the ancient universe. If we offer this substance to the great Lord of Chaos, we will be rewarded by the Lord of Chaos, which will increase our chaos level and give us all sorts of chaos characteristics. If the sorcerers and true gods in the Lord of God's dominion offer this substance to the Lord of Gods will bestow powerful divine spells upon them. As for the Lord of Time, he will bestow his civilization with powerful computing power. What is the most important thing for a technological civilization to evolve? It's computing power." Golden Rock nodded. Whether it was combat power or development potential, a technological civilization was inseparable from computing power. It could be said that the stronger the computing power of a civilization, the higher its development potential and the faster its development speed. The time prodigies under the Time King are the same as us prodigies of chaos. 100 Taoist rhymes can increase their level by 1 level. There are even existences similar to the Chaos Treasure Pavilion. If our deduction is correct, this special civilization called the God Civilization really relies on its computing power to develop at such a terrifying speed. In that case, the level of its time prodigy has most likely reached level 59. 59th step. Here's eyes widened. Are you serious? A ruler's chaos level was usually between level 45 and 59, and only a small number of powerful rulers could raise their chaos level to level 59 and above. Although this level 20 civilization had successfully evolved to the level of a ruler, his evolution was obviously very biased. Many aspects of his civilization were still stuck at level 18 or even 17. Could it be that he was already such a high-level child of time at that time? Where did they get so many Taoist rhymes from? Not level 18, but level 17. At level 17, his time prodigy should have reached level 59. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to develop to level 20 in a few thousand years. In fact, I had already deduced this a few thousand years ago. That's why I dragged Captain along to attack this civilization after he broke through to level 18 and possessed a level 18 physique. After all, the triangular galaxy is too close to the enemy's command center. Apart from a large number of level 17 and level 18 civilizations, there are also level 19 civilizations. Only after reaching level 18 will there be a guarantee of safety. Tsing Hui's heart skipped a beat when he heard this. If a civilization had inherited the legacy of another civilization, it would not have developed so unevenly. They were already at level 20, but many of the facilities were still at level 18. It was very likely that things were as Yu had guessed. The strength of this civilization came from its computing power. Computing power was linked to the level of a time prodigy. On the other hand, a son of time at the 17th or even the 13th level had already reached the 59th level. How similar was this characteristic of his? Could it be the last piece of the creation divine jade was in this divine yen civilization? A moment later, Tsing Hui shook his head and rejected this idea. It was impossible for things to be so coincidental. Even if the divine yen civilization had really obtained a piece of the creation divine jade, it would only be a small piece. A small piece of creation divine jade would probably be able to provide them with some Taoist rhymes a day. In other words, they could at most raise their chaos level to level 44. Any higher than that would exceed the range of what the creation divine jade could provide. However, The time prodigy of this divine Yen civilization was not level 44 at all but level 59. Conservatively speaking, level 59 did not seem like a level that could be raised by the creation divine Jade. It was very likely that this civilization had obtained the inheritance of a powerful civilization, or perhaps, they believed in the demon god and received the demon god's secret help. That was why they could develop to level 20 in such a short time. Since the demon god's power was different from the Time King's, he could only provide the aspects that he was proficient in. This had caused the development of the divine Yen civilization to be abnormal. In addition, the divine Yen civilization had clearly broken through to level 20 and was equivalent to the commander of this battle zone. However, they had been keeping a low profile all this while. Perhaps they were worried that news of them believing in the demon god would spread, so they did not dare to make it public. The most important thing now is to return to Earth through the divine wilderness great world as soon as possible. It won't be too late to investigate the divine Yen civilization after confirming the safety of Earth's civilization. Xing Hui thought to himself as he led Silver Feather, Golden Rock, and the others to the 823rd Battle Zone's command center. Due to the dimensional jump, it did not take long for them to return to the battle zone. Discovering a level 20 civilization is a great contribution. We will report this to the higher-ups now. Dongyang, it's all thanks to you that we were able to force that civilization to reveal their level 20 technology. Therefore, we will not take a single cent of the rewards and will transfer them all to you. Golden Rock relaxed a little when they reached the command center. At the same time, he turned to Xing Hui and thanked him solemnly. Xing Hui wanted to refuse, but considering that he had many places where he needed to use his merit points to exchange for various treasures, he did not insist. He nodded and said, "Thank you very much. We should be the ones thanking you. If not for you, I'm afraid we would have died there," Golden Rock said. Golden Rock said. In fact, along the way, he could already tell that Xing Hui did not have a level 21 civilization spaceship at all. He had relied entirely on his understanding of the dimensions to perform dimensional jumps. In less than 100 years, his understanding of the dimensions had reached such a level. Xing Hui obviously had a big secret. However, since the two of them were teammates, they naturally had a tacit understanding of these secrets. On the contrary, they couldn't be happier to have such a great god in their team. Why would they ask for a rebuff by probing into the other's secrets and arouse the other's disgust, causing the other to leave the team? We are members of the same team. Naturally, we should support each other. Ha, that's right. We are a small team. Let's go, and report the information. Golden Rock said and brought Xing Hui to the most majestic pyramid-like building in the command center. Soon, they arrived inside the pyramid. After using his identity card to activate the light screen and enter his information, he waited patiently. Not long after, a man with a level 18 physique flashed and appeared in front of Golden Rock, Xing Hui, Silver Feather, and the others. He asked directly, "Are you the ones who provided the information about a level 20 civilization?" "Yes. The great ruler Chero wants to see you. Please follow me." As the man spoke, he gestured with his hand and brought Xing Hui to the top of the pyramid. Golden Rock and the others were somewhat surprised, but it was understandable. After all, a level 20 civilization was equivalent to a dominator. Even though a ruler could destroy a level 20 civilization by launching sneak attacks in a one-on-one battle, if a level 20 civilization were to bring out all their battleships in a head-on battle, the threat of a level 20 civilization would be comparable to a few or even 10 rulers. In history, there had been cases where level 19 civilizations had used pack tactics to kill a Chaos Realm divine beast. I didn't expect to be summoned by a dominator. This is the third time I've seen a dominator in my life. The first time was when I was summoned to the battlefield and saw a dominator. The second time was when I witnessed a dominator destroy a level 19 civilization in a great battle. Both times, the dominator was extremely far away from me. I've never been able to be personally summoned by a dominator like this. Silver Feather was rather excited as she followed the man to the top of the pyramid. She was not the only one. The other captain, Golden Rock, also had a solemn expression. After all, a world with a thought was equivalent to a dominator. The difference between them was too great. He had only been summoned by a dominator once or twice in his long life. Following the man's lead, the group quickly arrived at a room at the top of the pyramid. Before even stepping into the room, Xing Hui could already feel a faint pressure. However, this was a pressure formed by a quantity over quality. Even though Xing Hui felt it, he was able to evade this pressure by slightly using his special characteristics of existence and non-existence. As for Golden Rock and Silver Feather, the difference between them and Ruler Chero was too great, so they could not feel this pressure. They only felt that Ruler Chero was filled with an imposing aura that could not be looked at directly. Even though they were not close, they could not help but feel reverence in their hearts. Even the sound of their footsteps became lighter and slower. Chapter 840. Great Ruler Che Luo, the 3 members of the Golden Rock team have arrived. The man led the 3 of them into a large hall that was over 1,000 square meters in size and spoke respectfully to a man in the middle of hundreds of light screens. "All right, you may leave." The man in the middle of the hundreds of light screens waved his hand, and all the light screens disappeared. As the light screens disappeared, Xing Hui finally saw Ruler Che Luo's appearance clearly. To be exact, he saw the operation of the mixed Yuan sacred body in his body. The man had clearly become a ruler not long ago and was unable to perfectly conceal the power of his mixed Yuan sacred body. This was why he had revealed it to Xing Hui. Under Xing Hui's gaze, the mixed Yuan sacred body in the man's body was a complete small universe. It was the same for the mixed Yuan sacred body, just like how a level 20 technological civilization had the technology to separate a small universe from a greater universe. However, they did not separate a small universe from a greater universe. Instead, they refined their own small worlds into a body. A small world that could be created with a thought required an endless supply of external energy to stabilize. Even a first-level chaotic realm supreme would need the support of the great Tao to operate normally. However, the mixed Yuan sacred body did not need to do so. The universe within the immemorial sacred body was already a complete universe, and the Great Path precepts were formed in his body. Although these Great Path precepts were simulated from the outside world, it was already equivalent to an independent circulatory system. It was completely self-sufficient. Such a world could exist for an extremely long time even if the ruler, the master of the world, died. If the living beings inside were not allowed to remove the external world, they would never be able to determine whether they were living in the world of someone else's body or the real world. So this is the mixed Yuan sacred body, Xing Hui muttered to himself. A complete small world. A small universe that could multiply endlessly. At this moment, he could not help but doubt the world he lived in. If the living beings in the universe of a second-level chaotic realm expert never left their own universe, they would never be able to determine whether they were living in the world of someone else's body or the real world. What about them? Who could guarantee that the great universe they lived in was not the world of some supreme being's body? Even the Lord of Time, the Lord of Chaos, and the Lord of Gods that were billions of light years in size, were they the same? However, they might exist at a higher level, or they might just be living in the timeline of some supreme existence. Even those supreme existences might only exist in the minds of some indescribable life forms. As his thoughts drifted, Xing Hui suddenly fell silent. After who knew how long, the golden pen reminded Qing Su rather anxiously. Only then did he awaken from his doubts and speculations towards the unknown. Xing Hui came back to his senses. He saw that Hegeman Chero's gaze had already landed upon him, and a hint of surprise and curiosity was in his eyes. Your life form is very strange. It's almost as though you are a unique existence that doesn't fit into the world at all. The various grand Daos of the world are unable to capture any information about you. If it wasn't for the fact that the energy in your body isn't very strong, I would have suspected that you might be a powerful divine ability who has transformed your body into the Tao. This Might have something to do with the fact that I cultivate an ancient, broken grand Tao. Xing Hui had already come up with an explanation for the fact that others might be able to see through him. Cultivators of ancient, broken grand Taos were in a similar state to him. Of course, they were just similar. An ancient, broken grand Tao, Hegemon Chero nodded slightly. Before this world was destroyed, it was an extremely grand world. It is said that it hides the mysteries of eternity. Some of the grand Taos that have been passed down through this world are equally mysterious. Unfortunately, these grand Taos are broken. Even if you study them, you won't be able to achieve much. Based on what I know, the people who have studied the ancient, broken grand Taos the most are only at the second tier of the primal chaos realm. To this day, no one has been able to transform their body into the Tao. I understand. However, since I've already embarked on this path and reached this level, I'm not willing to give up just like that. Thus, I will continue down this path. Hegemon Chero nodded, not thinking too much about it. After all, everyone knew about the flaws of the ancient grand Taos. He was only giving them some pointers because they had just accomplished something. Whether they listened or not was up to them. I've already learned about what happened from the Golden Rock. Based on what you said, that civilization is indeed quite unique. When the time comes, I will send an incarnation to personally investigate and see what secrets are hidden within. As for the two of you who discovered this world, I will reward you with 100,000 contribution points. 100,000 contribution points. Upon hearing this number, Silver Feather and the Golden Rock both stopped breathing. This was the equivalent of killing a Chaos Autarch or destroying a Tier 19 civilization. For them to receive such a generous reward, even if they had to risk their lives, it would be worth it. However, when they thought about the fact that they had already promised to give all of these contribution points to Xing Hui, they couldn't help but sigh in regret. After all, they knew that if it weren't for Xing Hui, they would never have been able to return alive and bring this news to Hegemon Chero. Thank you for your generosity, Hegemon Chero. The Golden Rock, Silver Feather, and Xing Hui all spoke out in unison. Hegemon Chero chuckled. I'm quite interested in this civilization you provided me with. In addition, Tier 20 civilizations have only just reached Tier 20. It's best if we wipe them out before they mature. Otherwise, once they've matured, we'll be in trouble. After speaking, he continued, now that we've finished discussing official matters, let's talk about private matters. Private matters? Hegemon Chero's gaze fell upon Xing Hui. The information I saw stated that you came from the Kun Dragon world? Yes. Xing Hui grunted in response. A short while later, he seemed to have guessed something from Hegemon Chero's rather strange question, as well as the aura emanating from his body. He suddenly said, pardon me for asking, but what is your relationship with Autarch Chero of the Kun Dragon world? Didn't you already guess? Hegemon Chero chuckled. You. Hegemon Chero nodded. I am Autarch Chero of the Kun Dragon world. It's been nearly 10,000 years since I last returned. How is the Kun Dragon world doing? This. Xing Hui didn't know what to say. After a while, he said, the Kun Dragon world was in a bit of a mess recently. However, the descendant of the Lord of Kun Ruins has returned and obtained the inheritance left behind by the Lord of Kun Ruins. She should have become the new Empress of the Kun Dragon Empire with the help of the Azure Dragon Sovereign. Oh, so the descendant of the Lord of Kun Ruins is still ruling the Kun Dragon world? That's good. It seems the preparations he made before he left weren't in vain. Xing Hui looked at Hegemon Chero, muttering to himself for a moment before asking, how is the Lord of Kun Ruins? The Lord of Kun Ruins has been dead for a few thousand years. Hegemon Chero's eyes dimmed. Back then, we started a war against this star field. In that war, there were 28 level 20 civilizations participating. At the end of the war, a level 21 civilization's fleet entered the battlefield. The Lord of Kun Ruins was at the forefront of the charge, but he was attacked by the level 21 civilization. Unfortunately, he died. At the critical moment, a famous almighty from our side rushed over and destroyed the main fleet of the level 21 civilization. He even destroyed their flagship, but he was still one step too late. A level 21 civilization. The Lord of Kun Ruins was actually the disciple of the giant Dragon City's city master. In order to avenge him, the giant Dragon City's city master, who was originally in charge of another battlefield, chose to guard this star field. This is also the reason why we were able to expand the territory of this star field. In just a few thousand years, not only did our star field expand, but the giant Dragon City's city master also destroyed 3 level 21 civilizations and destroyed more than 30 billion top-notch battleships. 30 billion. Xing Hui was secretly shocked. Although there were strong and weak battleships among the level 21 civilizations, the weakest battleship could usually kill a divine true body or even a maverick realm expert. It seems like the Azure Dragon Sovereign has fulfilled his duties well. Since the Kun Dragon Empire is still under the control of the Lord of Kun Ruins' descendants, then forget it. Xing Hui looked at Hegemon Chero. According to him, if the Emperor of the Kun Dragon Great World was no longer the descendant of the Lord of Kun Ruins' descendants, would he still intervene? Did he intend to be responsible for the Lord of Kun Ruins until the end, or was there something amazing in the Kun Dragon Great World? Shaking his head, Xing Hui did not intend to intervene in the chaos of the Kun Dragon Great World. After the meeting, Xing Hui and the others left the hall. After leaving the hall, the Golden Rock carried out his duty and transferred 100,000 merit points to Qing Su as soon as possible. Xing Hui did not stand on ceremony. After accepting the merit points, he asked, "I want to buy a small world that can contain living creatures. It would be best if this small world could be opened in the territory of any great life form. Then it would be a level 20 small world. This kind of small world with a complete internal cycle is not cheap. 100,000 merit points can only buy a small world with a diameter of less than 1,000 kilometers. 1,000 kilometers is enough." Xing Hui asked, "Can I buy it?" "Of course." A hint of pride flashed across the Golden Rock's eyes. "We are fighting for the great Lord of Chaos. Some of the top treasures that can be exchanged with merit points are said to be personally bestowed by the great Lord of Chaos. Let alone a level 20 small world, even a level 21 divine creation artifact might not be impossible as long as you have enough merit points." Chapter 841. Under the Golden Rock's lead, Xing Hui soon arrived at the area where military merits could be exchanged for various cultivation resources and treasures of heaven and earth. The Golden Rock opened the list of resources that could be exchanged for and allowed Xing Hui to clearly see the items that could be purchased. Xing Hui's eyes suddenly narrowed. The most precious item at the top of the exchange list was the legendary creation artifact. These creation divine artifacts were divided into 2 major categories. One was a creation divine artifact that was specially tailored for cultivators. Such a creation divine artifact required one to kill a supreme ultimate god or 30 ordinary superior gods of the King of Gods divine system. In addition, one could also exchange for destroying 20 rank 21 civilizations. As for the other category, they were not custom-made creation artifacts but happened to be in stock. Usually, one would need to kill a supreme ultimate god or 10 superior gods and destroy 10 rank 21 civilizations. The King of Pantheon's cultivation system structure was composed of lower gods, middle gods, and superior gods, corresponding to the first to third levels of the Chaos Realm. However, their cultivation system had a special structure called the Master God System. The Master God System was equivalent to the leader and king of the gods. Not only did they have amazing strength and power, but they could also borrow the power of other gods in the God System for their own use. The more gods the Master God System had, the more powerful their combat power would be. According to the size of the God System and their own strength, they would often be called divine kings or supreme gods. Among them, the divine kings were the more ordinary master gods of the God System, while the supreme god's combat power was several times stronger than ordinary great divine masters. Usually, it would take several or even 10 great divine masters to besiege and kill them. As for those special existences who were slightly above the ordinary third level of the Chaos Realm, they would often be crowned with the title of legends and supreme experts. Once supreme ultimate gods and legends appeared on the battlefield, they were almost invincible existences. I didn't expect the great divine masters in the third level of the Chaos Realm to be divided into different levels. Xing Hui could not help but sigh as he looked at the information on the list. As far as I know, the gap between the third level of the Chaos Realm and the fourth level of the Chaos Realm is too big. It's a double change in quality and quantity. It's because of the huge gap between the two levels that countless amazing geniuses were stopped at the door of the fourth level of the Chaos Realm. Although these geniuses could not take the last step for a long time and become a legendary existence in life essence on par with the great Master of Chaos, the Master of Gods, and the Master of Time, the accumulation of countless years were enough to make them invincible in the same realm. The Chaos Realm of the Chaos Master of the fourth level of the Chaos Realm, Master of Gods, and Master of the Master of Time? Xing Hui asked curiously. The Golden Rock listened and said with a little embarrassment, I've only heard from two rulers that the gap between the third and fourth level of the Chaos Realm was too big to be calculated. However, the gap between the fourth and fifth level of the Chaos Realm and the sixth level of the Chaos Realm, which represented the Great Master of Chaos, the Master of Time, and the Master of Gods, rapidly narrowed the gap between the fourth and fifth level of the Chaos Realm. That's why the evil gods who were rumored to be only at the fourth and fifth level of the Chaos Realm dared to stir up trouble in front of the three great existences. He then quickly added, those great existences are not something we can measure, so I can't guarantee the authenticity of this information. Xing Hui listened and nodded. The three great existences wanted to prevent the evil gods from spying on them, so they spent most of their time in the depths of the universe to prevent the evil gods from descending. Moreover, the three great existences had a temporary agreement that the battle of territories could only be maintained at the third level of the Chaos Realm or below, so as to prevent the three great existences from attacking each other. If all three of them were injured, the evil gods and demons would have an opportunity to take advantage of them. Therefore, the third level of the Chaos Realm is the most important realm. Those outstanding great divinity realm experts would often receive the personal attention of the Master of Chaos. If they make a great contribution, they might even receive personal guidance from the great Master of Chaos. The Golden Rock said with a hint of envy and fanaticism, for example, the person in charge of this war zone, the powerful giant Dragon City Master, was one of the strongest existences who was personally summoned by the Master of Chaos. Evil gods. Strongest. When Xing Hui heard this, he could not help but feel that his horizons had been broadened. Although the Golden Rock was only a cultivator of one thought realm, because he had been on the battlefield for many years, his horizons and knowledge were not even comparable to ordinary Chaos Realm Supremes. In addition, he wanted to be on good terms with Xing Hui, a cultivator with a bright future, so he did his best to introduce him. In fact, the title of Great Divinity has been used in this world for many years. It is a realm in the cultivation civilization of this world, the immortal Tao civilization. Because the cultivators of this realm are so strong, they were recognized by the great existences at the third level of the Chaos Realm. Although they were defeated by us in the end, it was because there were too few of them, and there were too many great existences who directly intervened. To show their respect, those great existences spontaneously called the third level of the Chaos Realm, Great Divinity, to commemorate the unyielding fighting spirit of this civilization's top cultivators. That battle, Xing Hui's heart skipped a beat. I remember that the battle started more than 100,000 years ago, right? I should still be able to look up the detailed information of that battle. Of course, but this kind of information requires authorization. Only those with level 7 authorization can investigate it. In other words, you have spent a total of 10 million merit points here. The Golden Rock paused for a moment. But if you are interested in this information, you might as well make a trip to the vast world. The vast world has collected almost all the information of our cultivation civilization. If you make a contribution there, you should be able to look up the relevant information. The vast world, huh? Xing Hui made a note of this. If he had the chance, he would go there and find out the truth of that battle. The two chatted as they browsed through the small worlds that needed to be purchased. After a while, the golden rock seemed to have discovered something. His eyes lit up slightly. Dong Yang, look here. In the next moment, he had already retrieved this piece of information. A small world created by a great divinity. A diameter of 100 kilometers. The price is exactly 100,000 merit points. Xing Hui's gaze also fell on this introduction. It seems that this is a small world given to him by a great divinity's disciple or descendant to sell or alleviate an urgent need. A small world created by a ruler has an internal cycle that can grow and multiply endlessly. However, a small world created by a great divinity already has Tao and can operate autonomously anywhere. In addition, although the Tao is simple, it is extremely beneficial to those who have yet to fully comprehend their own Tao. It is almost equivalent to a great divinity intercepting a great divinity's Tao for you to comprehend. Its value is almost comparable to an enlightenment stone. Of course, the enlightenment stone can enhance one's comprehension of the 18 great divinities, but this small world can only enhance the corresponding comprehension of the great divinity's great divinity. 100 kilometers. If it is only used to accommodate some important people, it should be enough. As Xing Hui spoke, he made a prompt decision to buy this miniature world. After all, a primal chaos realm divine beast or saint beast's body could reach up to 100 kilometers. However, the advantage is obvious too. It contains great Tao laws, which is the biggest advantage. Besides, these great Tao laws can be comprehended by cultivators who have yet to step into the primal chaos realm. Under the circumstances of corresponding laws, it increases the chances of them reaching the primal chaos realm. To us, this is definitely worth 100,000 contribution points. It's a pity that only a minority of cultivators who can reach the world realm with a thought can take out 100,000 contribution points. The Golden Rock said enviously. Xing Hui smiled and did not say anything. Not long after, a delivery man delivered the small world. The entire small world was sealed in a palm-sized crystal ball. Inside it, one could clearly see the movement of the sun and moon, as well as the movement of laws. Xing Hui carefully sensed for a moment. Although this miniature world was only 100 kilometers in size, in fact, there was a sky, atmosphere, and a series of elements outside it. In addition to a virtual sun, the actual area of this miniature world was actually 300 kilometers in size. From this point of view, it was already worth it. Xing Hui was very satisfied with this miniature world. It was rare to have such a good opportunity. He asked again, by the way, I wonder if I can trade Tao carrying items in the war zone. Of course. Tao aura is the most rigid currency in all worlds. The Golden Rock said and lowered his voice slightly. If you really plan to use Tao aura to buy the items on the military merit list, I suggest you go to the 800th district, which is the war zone where the commander-in-chief, the giant dragon city master, is personally overseeing. There are more experts there, and many of them are rich. There are also many who are willing to buy Tao aura at a high price. In different places, the exchange rate between military merit and Tao aura varies by a few times, or even a dozen times. What's the ratio? If you're lucky, you can encounter a ratio of 1 to 100,000, or even more than 100,000. If you're unlucky, you can encounter a ratio of 1 to 10,000, or even several thousand. The key is where you go. If it's the commander-in-chief of a war zone, the ratio of 1 to 10,000 is guaranteed. If you're willing to patiently wait for an opportunity, 1 to 20,000 is not difficult. If the ratio is higher, it depends on whether those people are in a hurry to obtain Tao carrying items. 1 to 10,000, 20,000, Xing Hui had already spent a lot of Tao carrying items on him. At present, there were less than 2,000 left. Less than 2,000, for those sovereigns above the 44th level of the Primal Chaos Realm, their annual expenses would reach more than 700 gold coins. This number wasn't considered much compared to sovereigns. Only sovereigns in the primal chaos realm would be considered wealthy. Anyway, I'm going to return to the divine wilderness great world soon. When the time comes, even if I can only get half of the Tao carrying items in the divine wilderness great world, I can still make a profit of several thousand Tao carrying items in a year. It's comparable to the income of those powerful experts, Tsing Hui thought and made a decision without hesitation. Bye. Chapter 842. The 823rd district was not far from the 800th district. In less than a year, Qing Su had already arrived in the 800th zone. Upon reaching the 800th district, Tsing Hui went straight to the market. This time, even though Golden Rock was not leading the team, Silver Feather, the vice-captain, followed him. Silver Feather was not as experienced as Golden Rock, but he was much more experienced than those who came from the inner world. After the two of them arrived at the market, they quickly browsed around. Most of the items he bought were for special life forms, tempering himself, and top-notch true treasures that were useful to divine beasts. The special life forms were naturally referring to the Scarlet Abyss Sword Spirit. The Scarlet Abyss Sword Spirit was nurtured by his sword intent and was absolutely reliable. As he began to have his own Tao, he could already let the Scarlet Abyss Sword Spirit comprehend his own Tao and evolve toward the chaotic realm. It was like a chaotic realm cultivator being blessed by the great Tao. As his great Tao law was so weak that it was not worth mentioning, even if the Scarlet Abyss Sword Spirit comprehended his Tao and evolved to the chaotic realm, its combat power would only increase by 1 or 2 times. At best, it would reach the level of the Godly Might King or the Heavenly Sword King. However, this was Tsing Hui's own Tao. When the Scarlet Abyss Sword Spirit broke through to the chaotic realm, Tsing Hui could use the Scarlet Abyss Sword Spirit in battle in the form of a divine weapon and the power of his great Tao law would be doubled. By then, his combat power might not be comparable to that of a chaotic realm divine beast, but it would not be a problem for him to surpass ordinary chaotic realm giants. Not to mention that he was still constantly tempering his body, evolving towards the true singularity. In a month's time, almost 2,000 Tao-bearing items on Qing Su had been used up. Correspondingly, he was extremely satisfied with the benefits he had received. The extremely valuable 2 strands of black and yellow aura, 144 strands of black and yellow aura, as well as 6 portions of true God origin liquid and a series of treasures that were beneficial to him. In addition to these things, Tsing Hui also bought a level 12 golden crow mythical beast and used less than 3 days to tame it. Then, in the next few days, he cultivated it to level 13. Divine beasts were different from cultivators. All divine beasts had to be nurtured before they reached adulthood. Once they reached adulthood, the divine beasts would obtain the complete inheritance of memories and would no longer submit to anyone. The best outcome would be to sign a contract. Just like the Lord of Kun ruins of the Kun Dragon Great World, the Azure Dragon Sovereign, who guarded the Kun Dragon Great World for him, had also been trained by the Lord of Kun ruins since he was young. Otherwise, he would not have been so cautious and conscientious in protecting the safety of his descendants even after his master had died. After purchasing all the items he wanted, Tsing Hui bid farewell to Yin. Without wasting any more time, he used the super spacetime cannon to head towards the bloodshed world. On the way, a full 10 years. In these 10 years, Tsing Hui had been using the great Tao laws he derived from himself to temper the Scarlet Abyss Sword Spirit. At the same time, he used the True God Origin Liquid and other items to strengthen the Scarlet Abyss Sword Spirit's spirituality. With the two-pronged approach, the Scarlet Abyss Sword Spirit, which originally had the Great Tao and a deep foundation, had already resonated with the Great Tao within Tsing Hui's body in the 6th year of his journey, becoming a level 1, primal chaos realm, life form reinforced by the Great Tao laws. Of course, due to the fact that Tsing Hui's Great Tao was weak, the Scarlet Abyss Sword Spirit was definitely the weakest primal chaos realm life form in history. Other than the Scarlet Abyss Sword Spirit's breakthrough, Tsing Hui had also refined the 2 strands of mysterious yellow aura. Relying on the Great Tao laws to constantly restrain his body's energy was constantly increasing. However, his body was gradually shrinking. After refining the 2 strands of mysterious yellow aura, his true body's height had already decreased from 10 meters to 6 meters. At this moment, if he were to release his own energy force field in the territory of the Time King, all the information and photons in the surroundings would definitely be devoured by him. In the eyes of others, he would be like a black hole, causing all information to be unable to escape. However, at this moment, the strength of his black hole was still somewhat lacking compared to a black hole that could support the operation of an entire galaxy. Devouring a few stars and a few galaxies was not a problem, but to support or devour an entire galaxy, it was still somewhat lacking. Other than the Scarlet Abyss Sword Spirit and himself, that little golden crow had also grown healthily under the nurturing of his large amount of mysterious yellow aura and the dragonization fruit. When Xing Hui truly set foot on the bloodshed world, this little golden crow had already grown to the peak of the 16th rank and was not far from the 17th. Divine beasts are indeed blessed by the heavens. If it were a human, even if they had sufficient resources, wanting to advance from the celestial phenomenon Earth level to the divine true body level in a short 10 years would still be an extravagant hope. Xing Hui sighed and soon arrived at the teleportation array area. As he had spent 100,000 contribution points during this period of time, his authority level had already reached the 5th rank, and he was qualified to use the teleportation array to return to the Kun Dragon Great World. Along with the familiar ripples of teleportation, not long after, he arrived at the imperial city of the Kun Dragon Great World. It's been close to 100 years. As the surroundings gradually became clearer, Xing Hui immediately released his consciousness and sensed the changes in the imperial city. Compared to before, what Xing Hui felt the most was the aura of the experts within the imperial city. 20 of them. A total of 20 experts at the world creation realm were overseeing the imperial city. Among the auras of these 20 experts, Xing Hui even sensed a few familiar auras, such as the Radiant King, the Godly Might King, and the Rosy Cloud King. And other than these experts, in the direction of the imperial city close to the imperial palace, there was a vast and imposing aura that carried a terrifying might that covered the entire imperial city. With the imperial city as the center, it even spread over a radius of 10 million kilometers. Is that the Azure Dragon Sovereign? Xing Hui raised his head and looked in the direction of the imperial palace. Beside the Azure Dragon Sovereign's aura, there was an aura that surpassed ordinary experts at the world creation realm, but had yet to reach the chaotic realm. There was no need to guess, this must be the new emperor who had obtained the inheritance of the imperial family's treasury, Princess Longyu. No, she should be called Empress Longyu now. Almost at the same time Xing Hui looked in the direction of the imperial palace. Within the imperial palace, a terrifying giant dragon that was over 100 kilometers long lying on a mountain peak suddenly opened its eyes. Its gaze was like lightning, piercing through the void as it rapidly looked in the direction of the teleportation array near the imperial city. Great Azure Dragon Sovereign, what instructions do you have for me? A young girl who had been serving the Azure Dragon Sovereign all this time asked respectfully when she sensed the abnormality of the Azure Dragon Sovereign. The Azure Dragon Sovereign did not reply, but carefully sized up the imperial city. After a long while, he withdrew his gaze with some doubt. Just a moment ago, he had clearly felt a wave of fear and trepidation, as if some terrifying existence had suddenly appeared. That feeling, it was a little similar to the strongest war weapon of the 20th rank civilizations, the Black Hole Fortress, that seemed capable of devouring everything. However, this aura had only appeared for an instant before disappearing without a trace. It was so brief that the Azure Dragon Sovereign thought it was an illusion. But, as a being at the first level of the chaotic realm, it was impossible for him to have an illusion. He could sense that the aura that had arrived did not have any malicious intent. Considering the other party's oppressive aura that seemed to be even stronger than his own and the other party's attitude of not wanting to attract his attention, he did not act blindly without thinking and continued probing. Perhaps, the other party was just passing by. In reality, the Azure Dragon Sovereign's guess was not wrong. Xing Hui was just passing by. I'll go look for Rosy Dawn King and ask her to give me the coordinates of the true Sun Great World. Then, I can directly use the World Rainbow Bridge to teleport back to the true Sun Great World. Xing Hui sensed the residence of Rosy Dawn King. Not long after, he had already arrived before a manor with a diameter of over 10 kilometers. The people living in this manor were precisely Rosy Dawn King, as well as a series of close friends and subordinates that depended on her existence. There were no less than 100,000 people, and the majority of them were cultivators at the Saint Realm and above. Xing Hui relied on that characteristic of his that existed and didn't exist to quietly walk in the manner of Rosy Dawn King. Along the way, all the information emitted from his body was completely devoured by his own characteristic. As long as he did not show himself, no one could even think of sensing his existence. He even suspected that it was a problem for the art of divination to deduce his current whereabouts. Relying on this kind of miraculous ability, he quickly arrived at the courtyard where Rosy Dawn King lived. At this moment, Rosy Dawn King was in the courtyard, instructing a young girl who looked 80% similar to her but was full of youthful and beautiful aura. On the side, there were several cultivators of the Traversing Realm and the Divine True Body Realm accompanying her. The key to the cultivation of the law of space is to use the momentum to guide the benefits, especially before the profound Void Realm has fully mastered the law of space. Compared to the vast and boundless Great Tao of space, we cultivators are extremely insignificant. Being able to mobilize 1 in a billion by relying on the momentum of space operation is already the limit. Don't think about controlling it, Rosy Dawn King gave instructions, carrying out a clear dissection of the law of space. And the young girl in front of her, who looked quite similar to her and had reached the profound Void Realm, was also attentively comprehending. From time to time, ripples would be emitted from her body. The scene looked quite harmonious. Seeing this, Rosy Dawn King was quite satisfied. Xiaoying, according to your current cultivation progress, you should be able to shatter the vacuum in a few years. When you can casually strike with the power to shatter the vacuum, it will be the time for you to try to condense the divine true body. If you can reach this step within 30 years, I can give you a 16th order flying sword as a reward. A 16th order flying sword? When the girl named Xiaoying heard this, her eyes suddenly lit up. Thank you, Master. The Rosy Clouds King smiled. She was about to say something, but at this moment, she glanced around from the corner of her eye and immediately caught sight of Qing Su, who seemed to have been here for some time already. Her face immediately changed in fright. Your Excellency Rosy Dawn King. Xing Hui nodded to Rosy Dawn King. At this time, the other people in the yard seemed to notice his existence. One of the people with some status was dissatisfied with the sudden appearance of this stranger. Who are you? How did you come here? There are no rules at all. Shut up. Rosy Dawn King shouted, and then, her face changed for a while. She stepped forward and asked unnaturally, Mister, why are you here? Over the years, they had combined all the information they had mastered to verify each other. Obviously, they had figured out that Yu Qing and Dong Yang were the same person. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.